Hello, hello, and welcome. Welcome to the Story Engine Speed World Building stream that we're hosting for Free RPG Day. Happy Free RPG Day, everybody. If you don't know what Free RPG Day is, I will tell you. Free RPG Day is a day that independent publishers like the Story Engine, like Paizo, you can look up all of the sponsors on the Free RPG Day website. They will actually sponsor this day by putting free little tabletop RPG products into a care package that they send around to all these different friendly local gaming stores around the world. I think we participated in 600 stores this year, where people can go and pick up a free tabletop RPG item. And it's our way of thanking the tabletop RPG community for being supportive, for being like interested in indie products and indie companies that are doing cool things, and a way of just celebrating all of the stories that you can tell at the tabletop together. Today's stream is going to feature a mix of very special guests, including some tabletop RPG people, as well as authors and writers. In fact, most people wear two hats on this stream. They've lived in the world of role-playing games and collaborative storytelling, and also have written and published books, novels, short fiction, poetry. So you get to see a lot of different perspectives, because the particular experiment that we want to do today is to basically find out how much world building we can get done in a 25-minute session. This is our guide to last-minute session prep, our guide to oh no, I have a story deadline and I need to get it done now. We just want to see how much flesh you can get on the bones of a story and of a world using just 25 minutes and a few prompts. So it's going to be really, really exciting. But if you're joining us, whether it's your first stream with us or you've been a long time streamer with us and a long time viewer, please do let us know where you're hailing from in the chat. We'd love to know where everybody's coming in from. Free RPG Day is an international thing, an international day. So I'd love to see how far and wide our community spreads here. One other thing I was going to mention about Free RPG Day, actually, I thought I'd just take a moment to show off, actually, the Free RPG Day sampler we put together. So this was our sponsor product for Free RPG Day. It features 35 cards from Deck of Worlds. Deck of Worlds is our deck of world building prompts. You can use it to create instant settings that have a vibrant past, present, and future, and also have stories that are ready to happen, right there on the spot. And we decided to put 35 of our favorite cards from the deck into this beautiful lotus folding little box, featuring some additional art, and then a curation of 35 cards of our different card types. And I think what we'll do is actually use this to do our first world building session, and then we'll start to break into the full main deck, and eventually we may even use some expansions and stuff. So we've got hello from Western Colorado. Hey, Kaitu. We've hung out before on the Trash Heroes Dungeons & Dragons stream, which I'll talk a little bit about because our first guest, Alina, is actually one of my castmates on that. Sally's saying hello from Oxford. And hello from the U.S. Navy in Pensacola, Florida. So welcome. Thank you so much for dropping by. We really appreciate it. Oh, and one more, spicy fruit salad checking in from Indiana. Awesome. So if you are celebrating Free RPG Day, to those who celebrate, definitely go down to your friendly local game store. You can find our 35-card Deck of Worlds sampler at stores participating. It should be free. You can also ask your local game store to contact the Story Engine and ask about stocking our products, because we would love to be in your local friendly game store. We work directly with stores. We don't go through distribution, so we're usually able to work out a good deal so that indie stores can carry our products, because we'd love to be there in your neighborhood. And the other thing to do about Free RPG Day is we've been doing some collaborations with Free RPG Day officially, where we've been writing some blogs together about different aspects of world building and storytelling in tabletop RPGs. So if you go to the storyengine.com blog, there's a little blog thing in the top nav, you'll be able to find just some tips and tricks on how to do last minute D&D and session prep, which you'll see a little bit of today. You'll see tips on how to do world building for a solo RPG, which can be really tricky. How do you create a setting or a world that gives you a story that feels like it's outside of yourself, but that's still something that you get to create. It's a really tricky balance to strike, and we have some tips for that, as well as one of my favorite topics that I've been talking about all year, which is collaborative world building and collaborative storytelling. How can you build a world with other people? And in fact, we're going to be doing a little bit of that today, because our guests are going to come on. They are going to build a really cool and original world, but occasionally we'll be throwing over questions to the chat. You'll be able to vote on which cues we should use, which prompts. You'll also be able to, if we interpret a prompt a certain way, but you want to pitch an alternative interpretation of that prompt, you'll be able to let us know in the chat. We're definitely going to look at some of our favorite comments and suggestions, so we'd love to hear your thoughts on the settings that we're putting together. And yeah, we'll also I'll be chiming in a little bit as our world builders are building their world, but they'll be in the driver's seat, so to speak. Yeah, so I think without further ado, we're going to get started world building. And if you haven't, by the way, seen Deck of Worlds before, it's our deck of world building prompts. Uses 6 card types to bring together what we call a micro setting, which is like a little, like a standalone setting, but that has connections to the rest of the world. And it is just a really helpful tool for being able to facilitate the world building process, whether you're doing it on your own or you're doing it with other folks. And if you haven't seen it before, you can check it out at deckofworlds.com or storyenginedeck.com. But without further ado, let's bring up our first guest. So our first guest, like I mentioned, is actually a castmate of mine on the Trash Heroes D&D live stream. It's a live stream that's very silly. We play 5th edition D&D in a fun, spoofy world created by Lane Myrie, and it's a lot of fun. We stream usually every other Tuesday or Thursday, but with the summer and everybody traveling for conventions, you'll want to follow our social feeds for kind of the latest showtime. And so my castmate is Alina Pete, who is a Nehia or Cree artist, writer from Little Pine First Nation in Western Saskatchewan. They grew up urban, but spent summers wandering the Capel Valley with their cousin from Cowessess First Nation. Alina is best known for their Aurora Award-winning webcomic, Weregeek, but they also write short stories, poems, and RPG supplements, and their work has been featured in several comic anthologies, including Moonshot Volumes 2 and 3. Alina lives in Surrey with their partner and 3 very silly parrots who enjoy sitting on their shoulder as they write. So please welcome Alina Pete. Hello, hello.
Hello, everybody.
So excited to have you on. I think this is going to be a lot of fun. And we actually have our first fellow Vancouverite checking in, who you'll see later in the stream, another one of the guests, James Stevenson, hailing in from Vancouver, BC.
I gotta say, props to you all for putting Indigenous people first on this Indigenous Peoples Day. The solstice.
Yes. Today is Indigenous Peoples Day here in Canada. Yes.
That's actually why I was like, I need to get up early because there's a powwow going on that I gotta be at. So
yeah,
I'm happy to be on first.
I appreciate you clocking in early, especially from the West Coast. You are getting up earliest of any of our guests today. Actually, a bunch of West Coasters today.
Yeah, cool.
We got folks chiming in from Chicago and Dundas and Ottawa.
Nice.
Awesome. Cool. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly change our camera setup here, and we are going to do our speed world building like this. There we go.
Awesome.
All right, so we are trying from our free little sampler here. And we are going to begin with the way we do every Deck of Worlds prompt, which is with a region card. So I'll pick 3 cards here, and Alina, you can let us know what you're interested in building. The region is kind of the main overlying terrain type that we're working with when we are looking at our settings. We can have an island or islands-based setting, mountain or mountains-based setting, or a swamp-based setting.
See, these are all good. I can do really cool stuff with all of them. Really torn between islands and swamp because both are good for hiding secret, mysterious things. Okay. Chat, do you have a preference over the 2 of those?
Awesome. We'll throw it to the chat here. So chat, before you vote, the way we do voting here, just because of the time delay and making sure that things are fair but also fast, you'll get to vote when we count down from 3, 2, 1 for either islands or swamp in the chat. And the first thing to get 3 votes is going to be the winner. So Alina, if you could please count us down from 3.
All right. In 3, 2, 1.
Red. So as our votes come in, what do you have lined up for the powwow? Is there any particular events or performances you're going to see? People you're meeting? What's going on?
Just gonna go soak in the vibe. I want to hear the drums.
Yeah.
It's been a while since I heard some good drums.
Awesome.
It's funny though. Out here on the coast, they're slower than I'm used to.
Okay.
The coastal folks have a much slower powwow drum beat than the plains, where we kind of go a little fast and hard. It's fun.
Yeah. Interesting. That seems to be a thing, I think, across West Coast cultures, is that the vibes are just always that little bit.
Good. I love it.
A little bit chiller. Oh wow, we had tons of votes come in. We had islands. Islands took it first, and swamp came from behind for a tie. You know what?
What's that?
Let's do both. So normally
Ooh,
I save it for
a
later in the
swampy
stream when we
island.
start breaking rules, but we're gonna just stack them on top of each other. Nothing in the rules says you can't do this. In fact, in the guidebook, did we put it in the little mini guidebook? No, we had to condense the rules for the mini guidebook that was printed inside.
Okay.
But in the full guidebook, which you can, by the way, if you go to storyenginedeck.com and just search Free RPG Day in the bar, you'll find our page for Free RPG Day. You can download the full rulebook there. If you have the little sampler and you want the full rulebook, you can find it on that page. And in the full version, there's only 2 main guidelines for the whole deck, which is don't leave without creating something, so make something when you sit down to engage in the creative act, and change any guideline or rule that doesn't work for you is the second guideline. So we can decide we're going to go with 2 regions. So we got Swampy Islands.
Love it. I love that I've been here 5 minutes and we're breaking the rules.
Love it. Yeah. All right, let's make some more trouble here.
All right.
Let's grab ourselves a landmark card. So here you'll have a pick between 2 landmarks, which are going to be like just a point of interest on our setting here. So I'll shuffle. All right, so this can go on the swamp area of the island. We can tuck it anywhere basically on this cluster, but we can give it a town or we can give it a peak.
Let's go town.
Okay.
A weird town on a swampy island.
Oh, I love it. I love swamp towns because what's the Monty Python? They said it was daft to build a castle in a swamp, but we built it just the same. This is building a town in a swamp on an island is going to have a lot of logistical problems. So we've already got like some really interesting elements to play with in the world building. Rad. Okay. Now we'll do what I have 2 favorite card types in this deck, and this is one of them. These are the namesake cards.
Nice, yeah.
Yeah, so these guys are the fragments of a nickname that you can combine with either the swamp or the islands or the town to give it like a lore-based nickname. I really like these cards because there's kind of an instant like chemistry that happens when you start coming up with like a lore-based name because your brain starts wondering like, why call it that? Where does that come from? So I love to see these in action. So we've got the prompts songless, where flowers grow, of gems and of clocks. And we can combine those with the islands, the swamp, or the town. Is there anything that's like dinging or ringing for you when you think about combining? We can walk through the permutations if you want.
I mean, we've already got a swampy town probably on stilts, lots of boats and rope bridges. Where flowers grow seems obvious because you can see like all the greenery and color coming in.
Yeah.
But I like the mystery of either songless or of gems.
Okay.
Because what is that about?
Yeah. Okay, so then do we want to put this over to the chat then?
Yeah, let's do that.
All right, chat. So Alina's going to count you down for songless or of gems, and first one to reach 3 votes will be the winner.
I think those have the strongest vibes and the most mystery that we can do something with.
Yeah, I agree. All right, count us down.
All right, in 3, 2, 1.
All right, I'm curious to see what vote comes in.
I'm already seeing a gem and a songless. We're tied.
Swamp gems. Oh wow, okay, they came in quickly. So
all right.
Gems, songless, gems, songless. I think songless got it, but by just a hair. Okay.
Okay, so songless. So this is not like the swamp where you would come in and hear all of the like insects buzzing and birds hiss. Maybe you do, but I think there's a hush over this town. There's something kind of cloaked and mysterious about it now. I'm seeing, instead of the like bright, lush swamp, like a very gray, misty, somber swamp town.
Yeah. Very interesting. Yeah, because like you're right, swamps are such biodiversity-rich environments because it has land and water. So you get like a lot of different. You get amphibians, you get aquatic species, you get land species. So the fact that it's like quiet, that there's none of that natural animal chatter is very cool.
It gives it a strong, spooky vibe.
Yeah.
And now we got to answer the big question it brings up for me is like, okay, it's a spooky, creepy swamp. Why did people build a town here? It's on an island. Maybe this is trade. Maybe there's something interesting they trade.
Well,
but that's what we get to find out with the cards.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you have beautifully teed me up for the origin card, which gives us where does this place come from, or what's something that originated here. If it's not an origin place, then what is the place an origin for? And if you want, we can still stick with the sampler here. We could crack into the horror expansion. I have it behind me.
Ooh.
If we do wanna like dip into the horror vibes a little bit more.
Do you want to get spooky? I like
Let's
spooky.
get spooky. Let's get spooky. Okay, here we go. So this is the Worlds of Light and Shadow horror expansion. 60 cards, and all the prompts are basically focused on ideas and elements that add horror to the world. And here we go. So we have Origin of a Dead Religion.
Ooh.
Founded by cultists. Site of a Great Shattering. And Former Dump.
Okay, I don't think Former Dump, but there's good vibes in Origin of a Dead Religion and Founded by Cultists.
So there's...
Yeah.
I'll tell you about a little thing we do sometimes called the corner tech, where if there's two cues that meet at a corner, you can kind of use both of them by just putting them in a creative tucking position. So if you want to have your cake and eat it too, we can do that, or we can drill down further.
Let's do that. Okay, so now we're getting Lovecraftian with this. We've got a foggy, misty swamp town, lots of bridges and creaking ropes, lots of that like long white moss dripping from things.
Yeah.
I like the fact that it's songless because there is a dead religion that was founded by cultists here.
Oh, yeah. And especially if that religion had a lot of songs in it and then went away.
Now it's all dead.
Yeah, now it's all dead.
And this is like a ghost cult. Like they're living people, but their religion is dead and all of their joy died with it. And so they wear like long robes. They shroud their faces probably.
Ooh,
and it's silent as much as possible.
Yeah. That is creepy and horrifying, and I love it. And that is canon now.
All right.
Speaking of canon, if any of these prompts have sparked anything for you, if you've got pitches as to the dead religion, the cultists, feel free to put those in the chat. We're curious to see where you think this is going. We'll have our own ideas that come together here. But for our next card, which is the attribute card, attributes are basically the present day status quo. What are the people who live there like, or what is the location like? We can draw from the sampler, or we can draw from horror. Or we could do something like there's a coastal expansion, so we could draw something to tease out more of the themes of the island.
Let's go sampler first.
Okay.
And if we don't like it, let's go horror.
That sounds
good. We want to really double down on the spooky.
Okay, beautiful. So from the main sampler here, which are, again, all cards that appear in the main deck. There's no new cards in here. We have known for spicy food. There's a popular blood sport. Known for honey, which would be difficult without pollinators, or maybe there's only silent animals like butterflies or something. And then regionally specific cat breed.
Ooh.
So anything there vibing, or would you want to see a little something from the secret supply and back, which is to say the horror expansion?
Known for spicy food is interesting, but I think let's put this one aside and we'll see if we can grab the horror spookiness.
All right, let's get back to the spooky over here. So we are looking for an attribute card.
Popular blood sport. That's fun.
Yeah, we had a request for. We have a specific request for popular blood sport.
We can keep this. Makes sense.
We'll keep it on the sideboard, and we can always tuck two. Like we're ahead of schedule right now.
We've already been tucking two several times, and it's just adds to the flavor.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of which, we started world building at about 2:05. It is. This is Halifax time, everybody. Sorry, I'm just doing some math out here. It's 2:18. So it's been 13 minutes, which means we have 12 minutes left. I'm going to put this little timer on the background so everyone can see how much time we have left. When that little wedge disappears, that means that the current world building session is ended. Okay, so here's the card that we drew from horror. Known for drinking blood, which pairs well with the blood sport, You got to do something with all the blood.
Okay, I'm instantly on the Made of Bones. I love Made of Bones.
Yeah,
and it's got a popular blood sport.
Yeah, and especially if it's like those raised walkways you were talking about, or like raised buildings, like having bones used for the struts or whatever could be really interesting. Big like sea creature bones. Habitat of a parasite and animal graveyard.
Ooh, okay. No, I think we're gonna go Made of Bones, and it's the site of a popular blood sport. So back when the religion was alive, there was some sort of grand Like I'm thinking of I can't remember the name of the old Incan game where you had like the big heavy
Yeah,
ball that you had to keep up with your hips,
yeah, yeah.
and
As made famous by the
afterwards the
road to El
losing team.
Dorado.
Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah,
and afterwards the losing team was often sacrificed to the gods,
yeah,
and the
yeah,
winners were celebrated as the greatest warriors. So let's do something like that. But
yeah.
I'm seeing not a game like that, but maybe a race into the depths of the swamp. Sort of
Oh,
like Hunger Games like.
yeah,
All of the bravest hunters go off into the swamp, which no one goes into,
yeah.
because that's where the dark things lurk. And whoever comes back with the most bones of their enemies wins, and then they're incorporated into the public hall,
Oh, yeah.
which is built
Awesome.
of bones.
Yeah, yeah. Rad. Okay, I really really like this take. I think that's fantastic. Also, I'm going to acknowledge I can see our next guest has arrived backstage. Awesome, Brent. We'll bring you up in a little bit. We're just counting down the last 10 minutes of Alina's world building session here. We've got actually, let's do a quick recap here for everyone. We have the
Yeah.
Songless Swamp, which is a big swamp island upon which a town was founded by cultists. It is the origin of a dead religion which involved song, and because religion is dead, there is no more song that comes from it. The town is made of bones and is the origin of a popular blood sport. This idea that the hunters all go into the tangles of the swamp to try and prove themselves, to come back with the bones of the most other hunters who went, is chilling and fun. And also, like, say what you want about the Hunger Games if you're not like a YA fan or a Suzanne Collins fan. Any story where only one person can win and a lot of people want to win is a great story format. That is conflict baked in from the beginning. Battle Royale works for a reason, baby.
Oh yeah.
So we've got the this Bloodsport format is going to be interesting, instantly interesting to see who's going to win.
This is a fun chance too to hook your players in by being like, and one of you gets selected to be part of the race. Oh no.
Yeah.
Maybe you all do.
And JAFG58 says that idea is really dope. The race into the swamp.
Nice.
Loving it. Okay, rad. So our last card type here, this is the Advent card. This is going to be the a coming change that could change the future of the location. So the really cool thing about having origins, attributes, and advents together in one deck is that you get to sketch out the past, present, and future of your location. So it's not frozen in time. It's actually a place that evolves and changes. The other thing that's really great about advents is if you are a dungeon master and you're doing last-minute session prep, this is what gives you a story hook. This is where the story starts. Figure out a way to get the party involved in what is going on. Think of an NPC that could approach them for help who is connected to the problem. Or if you're a writer and you need a last-minute story idea, this is a good place to think about who your main character is going to be, because you want to pick someone who's really invested in the conflicts of your world. That's how you tell really good stories where setting and story come together, is getting characters who are embedded in the conflicts of the world. So Alina, do you want to do horror? Do you want to do the sampler? What do we want to do for our advent here?
Let's start with sampler. Let's do what we did last time.
Sampler. Okay, cool. So if we don't like this, we can go to horror. Advent card. An iconic cultural object has gone missing.
Oh, I like
so
that.
This could be a historical document, an artistic masterpiece, or an appropriate artifact, or a respected thinker just made a startling prediction about the economy, climate, or supernatural world.
I think because this is the site of a dead religion, something important to them has gotten stolen. So you come into town, the great race is about to happen, but maybe it's the trophy. Maybe they had a special, the skull of an old, long dead seer that had dark gems that wept darkness has gone missing. And usually that's used to bless the winner of this race.
Yeah.
And they think it's gone off into the swamp. So now your players are going to be out there trying to get this item back while the race is happening and people are killing each other and there's a great battle occurring.
That is such a good hook. Killer. I absolutely love it. So we'll tuck that here on, I guess, the swamp area.
Yeah.
Seems much
Oh, and you get a little bit of a tension build by going, and you guys have to find this and return it before the race is finished.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, I like that. Otherwise, yeah. Oh, that's interesting. It'd be especially fun if they don't bring it back, if like the race can't end. So if like the kind of purge violence spree is technically still on until it's found. So like if otherwise it doesn't conclude, that person just continues to do whatever they're going to do to sort of be on top in the race or whatever. That would be very interesting. Well, we have 5 minutes left, Alina. So
Yeah.
there's a few things we can do here with the bonus time. One is I do want to hear. I'm going to be asking this sort of every guest today. What is the most last-minute story or world you've ever had to create? Whether this was for a deadline as a writer, or this was creating something for your career as a sort of tabletop RPG player, storyteller, and performer. What is the most last-minute story or world prep you've ever had to do?
Okay, I have two answers and for different situations. The one is anytime I'm DMing, it's invariable that your players will go off and do something that you didn't expect.
Yeah.
And so you like very often have to go, oh, okay, yep, that town that I mentioned that I was just going to skim past before you got to the like magical forest. You guys want to spend a bunch of time there, so I'm making up an entire town in my head as we go, and I'm going to have to try and come up with something interesting and memorable about it because clearly the players are invested in it. So like that kind of stuff happens all the time, and I've actually started keeping some of your cards by the table so I can just sort of be like,
Oh, nice.
yes, here you go. It's this.
I have
Especially
done
the hook cards.
Yeah, I've done in session like what's that? It's the Wallace and Gromit animation moment where he's like laying the train track as the train is rolling. That's the feeling that I get hearing you tell that story.
Yeah, that's DMing most of the time. And then the
Yeah.
most intense writing project I had was 2 days before the deadline of this one anthology I was in. They changed the specs of what they needed. And so it was no longer a comic, which was good because there wasn't enough time to draw an entire comic in that time frame, even just a simple like 2-pager. And it was instead prose. So in 2 days, I had to come up with a world, a story, conflict, and then when it went down to 1,500 words, because that's all I got. So not only was it like last minute world building, world story building, but it was like also you don't get very much room. So you really have to like jump into the story, get the audience on board with you, and resolve it almost instantly.
Yeah. Holy smoke! So what was the total time that you spent from the kind of like final brief of this is what this thing's going to look like to delivering it? What did that look like?
It was 2 very solid 10-hour days of writing.
Jeez, I can't do. I used in my youth I could do those. I cannot do those anymore. I'm an old
Yeah.
man. I'm a slow, bitter old man. All right. Do you have any advice for whether it's writers or for game masters who ever need to pull out some last minute creative inspiration? Anything that's worked for you, or any advice for that situation?
I think the thing that helps me the most is always asking why. So like if you come up with a thing where you're like, oh yeah, this feels right, like in this one, it's like, okay, the town made of bones feels super like that's where we're going with this. But why is the town made of bones?
Yeah.
Is it something that they worship? Are they a cult of like necromancers, or are they is this some form of ancestor worship? Are they keeping their families close to them? And it's actually like a heartfelt, we're always here with our families, like a really genuine thing.
Yeah.
Which way do you want to go with it? And the answer to the why always depends on why you need it as well. You're like, okay, I'm running a horror game. Obviously, I want to ramp up the horror, make this as terrifying as possible. Or our world has actually been light and fluffy, but this is a bit of darkness I want to bring in to like really pull at the players' heartstrings. So then you shape the world to the answers to the question why.
Yeah. That is a really and I think that works not just for last minute too. Like that's just good. That is just good storytelling. That's a good way to make sure that whatever you're working with for your story, whether it's limited time to create it or limited word count or limited time within a session with your players, like making sure that you know why the things you're putting in it matter, like super clutch.
Yeah.
Rad. Okay, well then with our last 2 minutes here, I was thinking again. So I should actually briefly explain. Maroki and Eric are on their honeymoon. Their long-delayed and well-deserved honeymoon. They are getting time disconnected. So that's why instead of having our usual trio, I thought let's bring in friends of the Story Engine to do some really cool, fun, creative work together. Also, because Maroki is not here to keep me in line, which is something that she's usually very good at, is keeping me focused. We can just pull from some other random decks. I'm thinking we got a dead religion. We've got 90 seconds. Do you want to create a god using
let's do it.
Okay, so we're gonna do the Lore Masters deck deity expansion.
Let's speed run this god and
speed run god creation. Here we go. Okay, deities expansion for
awesome.
Lore Masters deck. Lore Masters deck is our deck of basically you can create lore webs, interconnected nodes of your world that connect factions, characters, etc. And we have an expansion for creating gods. So here we go. Is the god of this island the Heron, the Dreamer, the warden or the paradox?
I love the heron
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You know what? For a swamp island, that
for a
is
swamp, but like a big ass heron,
perfection.
not just a regular heron. Like
Yeah.
it's like 20 feet tall.
Yeah. Oh my
And it
goodness.
lives at the heart of the swamp.
Oh geez. Yeah. Yeah. I think that I think there's a combat encounter with it, but it's not to kill it. It is just to survive and get away. Like that's the whole.
Hmm.
That's the whole deal.
This is some terror bird nonsense.
Yeah, yeah, this is some absolute terror bird nonsense. Okay, well, let's find out a bit more about our heron here. Every card in Lore Master's deck is two-sided, so the back side has prompts that give more details to the front side. So our heron, they have a background where they were wounded by a mortal, an agenda where they were trying to eradicate an enemy faction, a domain of beginnings and or ends, or a trait where they can possess their followers. Which is interesting because the heron is a hunting animal, right? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
getting the heron's blessing, that's, ooh. All right, what are you thinking? What are you thinking?
Possess their followers is fun, but I think I'm going to go wounded by a mortal, and it's trapped on this island, which is why the dead religion was founded there.
Yes.
It used to be able to fly the world and hunt, but now
Yeah.
it is limited to this one island.
And that is because your beginning question was why would people build here? That's the thing you asked right at the beginning. This is the why, and like you said, that piece of advice of like make sure you ask why. We have our answer. I heard the dinger go, so that is
All
our
right,
time. That is 25 minutes of world building, but we have this is a banger of a session. My gosh, I would love to explore this place. Well, Alina, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for doing a demonstration of live world building and showing how a creative mind thinks in constructing a storyline for a session out of just using kind of a few elements here. Where can people find you, and what are you working on right now?
You can find me at alinapete.com or Where Geek Comics on Twitch, is usually where I'm streaming with Peter. We do our Trash Heroes, which is a lot of fun. Right now, I am working on a really cool story about residential school survivors. And it's a partnership between Luxembourg and Canada, because the Luxembourgian priest came and worked at Christie Residential School here in DC. And so they have his journals, and I have access to a bunch of survivors and their stories. And we're going to co-publish it between Luxembourg and Canada, which is going to be rad.
That is incredibly cool. So the best place for people to find out more about that would basically be to keep an eye on your website and your social media feeds? Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
And you are at Alina Pete in most social networks, right? Okay.
Yeah,
awesome.
That's where I am. Thanks so much for having me. This has been super fun.
Thank you so much for coming on board. I really, really appreciate it. Unfortunately, normally we try and take a picture of all the prompts when they're done, but this time we have to kind of build on top of the previous prompts, so I'm going to have to clear it. But thank you for creating this. This is super duper cool. I look forward to exploring it in my nightmares.
Rad.
Awesome. Thanks a lot.
Thanks
Enjoy the
for having
powwow.
me. Yeah.
Right. Cheers. Awesome, and we're going to bring up our next world builder. Actually, let's take a minute to check in with the chat here, and just see what's been coming in. Yes, JAFG58 says amazing insights, dope mind. Thank you for your time today. And Sally Water says nice work. No worries, Sally. Well, there's going to be a replay that's available of this online, so you can check that out in the future. Okay. Awesome. Let's bring up our next guest. So Brent Lambert is a Black queer man who heavily believes in the transformative power of speculative fiction across media formats. As a founding member of Faya Literary Magazine, he turned that belief into action and became part of a Hugo Award-winning team. He resides in San Diego and is also the author of Unnecessary Chaos, a fantasy Mr. and Mrs. Smith, but exceedingly more gay. You can find him at brentclambert.com. He's also our guest social media person who's been running this at Story Engine Deck accounts for the last month, as Eric has been away on honeymoon. So if you want to spend more time with him, you can find him on his socials as well as ours for the next little while. But please join me in welcoming Brent C. Lambert. Hey, hey, hey.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, happy to be here.
Thank you so much for making time. I really, really appreciate it.
No, yeah, this is exciting. I mean, you know how much I love these decks. So getting to do it live, it's actually pretty cool. So
yeah, this is gonna be fun. And I think we have not gotten to do any like co-creation stuff yet. So
no,
this is
we haven't.
our first time getting to jam.
Yeah. So
right.
this is pretty cool. I'm excited.
Cool. Well, thank you for making time on a West Coast morning. I tried to pick a time where, in case we had UK guests, it would kind of fit between all three. And this is the middle ground that's unfortunately hard on the West Coasters.
You know, it's okay. I have pulled worse nights for less, so it's fine.
Cool. Well, as guest number 2, you have free range on any of the expansions that we could use. So we can stick
Okay.
with the main deck, or we can mix expansions as we go. And if you ever find yourself undecided on something, like picking between 2 expansions or picking between 2 prompts that you like, we can throw it over to the chat for a vote. So it's always fun to bring them in for tiebreakers, etc.
You know, I'm such like a chaos demon with these cards. I always just mix every kind of expansion together. I don't keep them. But I guess if I was to pick one, I don't know, maybe the Worlds of Myth and Magic expansion.
Yeah, Worlds of Myth and Magic. Let's do it. That is our fantasy expansion, which I think we actually don't crack this one out as often as we should. So this will be a really fun one to trot out. I think it's actually our most popular of the Deck of Worlds expansions. I think it's still in stock. We are selling out of some stuff. It's been a busy sort of start to the year.
Which is exciting, yeah.
It is super exciting. It is super exciting. We've got a reprint coming in August, September. I think there are still a few of these left. And yeah, let's bust out Worlds of Myth and Magic. So here we go. I'm going to set 25 minutes on the clock here. Maybe I can even keep this in the frame.
That'd be kind of, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Although I might start getting nervous, like, oh.
We'll start it off here, and we'll see how we feel about it. If it gets too nerve-wracking, we'll make it small in the back. Yeah. I had last year's. Actually, I'll already set it to 25 when I'm done this very brief aside. I can't help myself with asides. Last year for Free RPG Day, we did a 100% improvised tabletop RPG actual play. So we created the characters, the storyline, the world on stream, and then just rolled right into the gameplay using an improvised system called Roll for Shoes, where like you don't really need to prep much more than picking 2 skills for your character sheet. And at some point in the story, which just got completely out of hand, there was like a bomb that was going to go off to blow up the island, and the characters had limited time. So I pulled out the same timer and had it on the back shelf to count down. And then when the players did really, really well and stayed ahead of the timer, I ended up cranking it down to 5 minutes because it looked like it was going to be too easy, and I wanted everyone to sweat. So I was not intentional, but we get to break this out again today. All right, we'll set it to 25 minutes, and we'll get cracking here with a region card for you. So regions in the rules, you just kind of pick 1 or sometimes 2, but I always like to give 3 when we're doing it on stream, just so we can really find something that we are vibing today. So we've got a city, a sea, or a fen.
Oh, okay. So I think I'm automatically drawing the city or sea, but I like the idea of letting the chat kind of choose the initial to start off with. So
okay, then I'm going to clear fen out because we got your favorites here. We got city and sea. So chat, you'll be Brent will count us down from 3, and then you'll be able to vote. And the first thing to get 3 votes will be the winner. So Brent, if you could count us down from 3, please.
All right, 3, 2, 1.
Here we go. This is our countdown system. Is the way that we found that has kept chat votes most manageable. If you find, by the way, that you are sending in your vote after everyone else has, it probably means that you're on delay. So you can refresh the stream and rejoin us, and that'll make things a little bit easier. All right, we got sea, city, 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 city. The cities have it.
All right, city.
Let's do it. We just the last one we created was more rural, like it was a town, but in an area that's mostly wilderness or uncultivated space. So now we get to do something that's really, really set urban. We got stuff going on. All right. Do you want to stick with fantasy expansion for the landmark?
Let's ride it out, see where it goes.
Beautiful. Oh, that's the sampler. I've got my piles of cards confused. I'm going to actually move the horror one away so I don't accidentally throw that in the soup. Okay, here we go. Landmark card. We can have a forge or a fort that is a point of interest in our city here.
Ooh. Okay. As a military brat, I'm just gonna go with fort. That feels familiar to at least my childhood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Rad. Interesting. And I guess the military brat experience. So did you have the moving around a lot experience?
Oh yeah, I moved like every 2 years as a kid. So pretty much there was no segment of school where I like actually stayed in one school for like anything more than a couple of grades at a time. So we constantly bounced around.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, I mean, for I'm sure there's always like the challenges that come with that. As a writer, though, I guess to have had experiences in so many different places to draw on.
Yeah, I mean, it's
kinda
kind of
interesting.
it is, and yeah, like for instance, I spent like the majority of my middle school years living in like Panama in Central America. So like that's a quite the different experience than like most kids from the South get, you know. So yeah, so it definitely brings, I think, something to my writing, especially when I'm thinking about world building, because you know, you get to see it gives you those perspective changes and shifts that I think, especially I'll just call out Americans in general. I don't think we actually seek out, or we don't really get exposed to, in terms of like, you know, seeing other cultures and seeing other places, and just, you know, getting those perspective changes. So I think that's probably the biggest positive that like all that moving around did in terms of like my world building, for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm excited to see what how we can kind of build on that here as we flesh out our setting a little bit more. So then, what I will do is find us a namesake card from the fantasy expansion here. All right, so we've got our city, we got our fort, and then we can have the City of Shields, the Fort of Shields, the City of Bards, the Fort of Bards, the City that chooses, the Fort that chooses, or the Dwarven Fort or the Dwarven City.
Okay, so I tend to want to think about like what sounds completely like bonkers, because like sometimes I feel like when you make at least one of those kinds of choices in
Yeah.
this thing, then you can get some fun stuff. So I kind of feel like when you're reading those choices off, I'm like, what the hell is a Fort of Bards? Like that's probably gotta be like there's gotta be a story there. So
Yeah. That is actually really interesting. Well, it's funny because the Highland Games were hosted in Moncton last weekend. I do a bit of historical fencing. I fight with the broadsword,
yeah.
and I didn't get to go just because the timing didn't work out. I was actually I missed it. Flew to the last Kendrick Lamar show in Toronto, which was like my wife's been wanting to since the tickets went up on tour. So Kendrick and SZA, absolutely incredible. Not going to do a full aside on this, but I skipped out on the broadsword tournament to do that. That said, friggin' bagpipes. Like bagpipes are still a thing that they will train in some parts of the Canadian military because it's part of like a lot of ceremonial and funerary stuff.
Yeah.
So when I think Fort of Bards, I think like this is where they train all of the like the battle drummers. But there's so many ways we can go with this.
Well, that's actually interesting that you said that, because it reminds me of this book I read this year. That's it's called Feybound by Sarah Alfieri. I think I'm probably messing up the last name, but in that book there is actually magic where like people use their drums to like create drum fire, and like they beat the drums at a certain point, and it's like it draws up fire, and they can like chuck it at people. So I was thinking that, and I also remember this David Gemmell novel I read a long time ago. I cannot remember the name, but there was this guy in it who used his voice to like kind of like control plants and like do these gnarly things and wrap people up in thorns and like, you know, so yeah, I'm thinking like music as magic.
Yeah, music is magic. Rad. Let's see if once I get an idea in my head, I'll start to read other cues through the lens of that idea. So I'm curious to see if we get any music cues either organically or things we can read music into, because I think that'd be a lot of fun to play with. Okay, cool. Music and magic. Do you want to stick with fantasy, or do you want to veer off anywhere?
Ooh, okay. So like I said, I'm kind of like a chaos person with it. So I would actually be down to like throw in like a sci-fi card and see what happens. Yeah.
I'm into it. And okay, sci-fi. Okay. So now we are drawing our origin card. So for those following along at home, origin cards are, again, a point in the past of this location, something that originated there, or a cause or origin for the location. So we've got the birthplace of a famous scientist, created through time travel, site of an orbital strike, or supposedly from another dimension.
Okay, so I'm torn between two, so I'll probably let the chat pick here. So I'm torn between the another dimension or orbital strike. So
okay.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll count you down in a sec here. And chat, because
Okay.
these are longer cues, you can either put in strike or dimension. That's all you have to type. So strike or dimension. And Brent, why don't you count us down?
All right. 3, 2, 1.
I'm excited to see what people come up with.
Me too.
Yeah, very Nuke It from Orbit vibes.
Yeah.
Fun.
Imagine that they're such terrible singers. It was like, destroy this shit from orbit. This gotta go.
Yeah. Yeah, you know what? One time I was at a convention and there was a very well-meaning group of obviously theater kids. And I have to say, I love theater kids. I love theater kids. None of this is said with, but theater kids in certain contexts are great and in certain contexts are difficult. And what I found from interacting with theater kids at conventions was they can be hard to get rid of. They may not pick up on cues that like time to go. And one of them started saying the opening lines of Hamilton, and then all of them joined in and went into a like the full 5 minutes of Alexander Hamilton, the song from Hamilton the musical. And it was one of those moments where like, how do you get rid of a group of theater kids who have hit critical mass and energy, where like we're on the full roll? Yeah. And I don't think you can, but like I can understand. You know, there may have been a moment where in the back of my mind, if I was offered the orbital strike, I would have been like, and it's like yeah. There's no song that you want to hear someone do 5 minutes of a cappella of that you didn't choose, and you can't leave because you're attached to your booth. There's no song.
But yeah, that's probably the city's history. At some point, it was founded by theater kids.
Yeah. Okay, so here we go. We got strike, dimension, strike, dimension. Dimension gets it for 3.
All right.
We have spared our bards and our theater kids, and no one is getting orbitally struck.
Yeah. So they are just from another dimension.
From another dimension. Cool. I mean, that could be really cool if like if the fort is like a meeting place for musicians from different places, right? Like
that would be cool. Yeah. It's kind of like a nexus point.
Yeah. Okay, that's fun.
Yeah, and even though that's sci-fi, that still can be kind of fantasy too, because I feel like fantasy like has like, you know, I think Kate Elliott just had that one book, Secret Six or something like that, where it was like they had like cities that were like dimensional nexus points for like multiple fantasy realms. So yeah, I think that's still within the bounds.
Yeah. Rad. Okay, so now we have our fort of bards, supposedly from another dimension, in our fantasy city here. I think we are due for an attribute card, but again, I'm thinking about going off script. And if you're a chaos demon as well, then we can team up in this. I kind of feel like I want another origin too. I think I still want to know more about the city.
Yeah. No.
So I think, why don't you pick? Do you want to do another namesake, or do you want to do another origin card for the city?
Let's do an origin card.
Okay. And where do you want that to come from? Which deck?
Let's just do it from the regular deck and then see what we get. Yeah.
All right. I'll pull from the sampler then. Here we go. An origin card from our free RPG Day sampler deck. We've got the site of a famous scientific discovery. We've got created to keep a promise, site of a notorious bet, or shaped by centuries of war.
So I feel like the obvious one, which is, you know, totally a fun one for sure, would be the shaped by centuries of war. But the one that like immediately perked my attention was created to keep a promise. Because what kind of promise did you make that you had to build a whole city behind it?
Yeah. All right. I like it, and I don't have an answer to that question, but I'm looking forward to.
I have zero clue. I'm like in my head. I'm like, what the hell would make me be like, I'm gonna build a whole city?
Yeah. All right. Well, chat. If you have any ideas, pitch them to us in the chat. We're interested to hear them, but we'll see if we can explore this as we continue to build our setting. So let's do attribute, and let's do main deck again for that one.
Yeah. Let's do it. Yeah. Let's go with it.
Cool. All right. So again, attribute card is the present day. It describes either the location or the people who live there. We've got famous for archives, known for a delicious reptile dish, located above caves, and headquarters of a crime family.
Okay. So that would actually kind of like would probably be my instinct, but I want to go against my instinct here. So, I think they're known for a famous delicious reptilian dish is kind of fun too.
Yeah.
Because maybe they're cooking up some dragon over there. I don't know.
Yeah. I'm interested in that. Actually, it's because how do you cook a dragon is a really interesting question, because I'm assuming that by their natures they're like a little bit fireproof.
Right.
So then,
right.
how do you prepare them is also a really interesting question.
Right. Maybe they like sushi. You don't cook it.
Yeah.
Maybe they're already like, maybe because they're already inflamed, like their meat is already perfectly tendered, and you don't need to do anything to it.
Dragon roll. There we go. Perfect.
Yeah, dragon roll, literal dragon roll.
Love it. That's perfect. Dragon sushi is one of those things. I'm definitely gonna, if you don't mind me stealing it, I'm gonna use that at some point in a tabletop RPG session.
Take it. I have so many half baked, half finished things. Take it. Run with it.
I have a little document I call the organ cooler, where it's just all these ideas that I couldn't find a place to use, but I know I want to save them for later. I just throw them in there. It also makes it easier to like cut stuff from a story where I know like this is so cool, but it's not helping.
A cut file is such like a godsend for people who like. I feel we're probably the same way. I'm just like, I can't let it go. Like I want to use it.
Yeah, it's the equivalent of that one drawer in the kitchen where you keep all the little shit that you know you like.
Yes.
How often do I use a lemon reamer? Like, yeah. Sick. Okay, so then last card type here, and then looks like we're gonna have some bonus time to pull on some other weird expansions or add some other elements to the world here. But let's do an Advent card. Advents, again, I think it's such a big decision to make because it's like your story takes place in whatever space you draw here. So is there a expansion that you're particularly attracted to for the story?
Okay, so I'm gonna be chaotic again here, but I want to kind of do a horror card. So if we do the Worlds of Blight and Shadow here.
Worlds of Blight and Shadow, baby. All right, pulling that back out. And we are going to pull the Advent. Right. Okay. And I'm just going to say a quick hello to James in the backstage. Thanks for dropping by, James. We've got 10 minutes left on Brent's session. You can watch us here before we'll bring you up. Rad. Okay, so Advent card. Horror. Here we are. People's nightmares are breaking through to the waking world as ghosts, living daydreams, or mass hallucinations. Or an insect infestation is taking over. They are skin burrowers, plague bearers, or flesh eaters. We had such a nice little location. We had such a nice setting here, and we've ruined it. We've really ruined it.
I love it. I loved it. Like,
What's the story? What's a world without conflict?
Yeah, I swear, like, soon as like I felt it, I was like, oh, if we throw just a little bit of horror in here, it's just gonna make it so much fun. Okay, both are really cool. So I don't want to burden the chat with this one though, so I'm gonna figure this one out. I want to go with an insect infestation that's taking over, and my thought process with that is that someone left out the dragon meat too long, and there's a specific kind of bug that eats rancid dragon meat, and now the city has an infestation.
Yeah. I definitely like that being tied to the ecosystem that we've got going on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and it could be like, especially if dragons are maybe one of the things that stop this creature from getting too numerous and like been like overhunted or something too.
Yeah.
And that combination of like the insects getting to eat them and then not being kept in line, it gets bad. And then just so one of the things I really enjoy about the Advents is there's these optional little bonus cues that like sometimes I'll ignore them, sometimes I'll use them. These ones are all making me uncomfortable, so I kind of have to know what we're dealing with.
All of them.
All of them? Oh no! Oh no!
Let's just say all of them. Let's just say like these things are like the worst kind of bugs you could possibly have. So like they burrow, then they make you sick, and then they eat their way out.
Yeah. If you want to be deeply uncomfortable about insects, Brent did a short story for the Deck of Worlds. We when we launched Deck of Worlds, we did a sort of 13 micro-setting postcard pack with stories and lore attached, where we wanted to see what different artists and authors could do using the sort of alpha version of the deck. And Brent created Azugon's Haven, which is this swamp setting where there's a thing that happens with like the insects and this captain in there that it's like I had to go through the story I didn't have to edit very much. It was like beautiful right out the gate. There was like no changes, but having to read through carefully as this like horrible thing is happening to the captain with the insects, and that's not even the bad things part where things go wrong. That's like that's the warm up to how things go wrong in that story. Yeah, you can find that in the what do we call it? The Atlas of Legendary Places, which we published all the stories and the lore together on the website. You can find that in storyenginedeck.com. But Azagon's Haven is a great, if you want Brent to make you uncomfortable with insect infestations, that's a place to do it. Horrifying. Okay, well, we have 7 minutes of bonus time.
Okay.
So I'm going to ask you the question that I asked Alina, and then we're going to get into getting to do some fun bonus mode stuff. But what is the most last minute story or world you've ever had to create, whether it was for games or it was for your writing? What's the most like I needed inspiration, and how did you get it?
Okay, so there was this I actually got asked to do a flash fiction piece. It was with Neon Hemlock, and so I just knew, I was like, I have zero clue what to do, but I listened to this I don't know what it was about this song, but it was like this industrial, like techno song, and I was listening to it, and for whatever reason, it gave me an image of like these really like weird, gross people dancing in the nightclub, and so I just like ran with it, and I wrote this story about like it's basically about it's like a commentary on like kind of like gay culture and youth or whatever, but this nightclub is like this necromancer feeds on people's beauty to stay beautiful, and like no one knows it though, and everybody's just like still partying, but they all look haggard.
Oh wow, that's really interesting. I've seen the like the vampire feeding on energy, but feeding on beauty is such an interesting concept and a way to respin that, especially for like the space that you're exploring. Like,
Yeah.
Cool.
So that was cool. Very last minute though.
Yeah. So music is one of the ways that you've gotten some last minute inspiration when you've needed it then, eh?
Yeah, it tends to actually be, surprisingly more than not, it tends to be like something that like invokes imagery in my head for some reason. So
yeah. I'll definitely I'll build vibe-based playlists when there's certain headspaces I need for creating in certain, and it's often world-based for me. I find not story-based, but if I'm writing a certain world or creating a certain world, I like it. Cool. And do you do like when you went to go, did you go seek out the song? Did it just happen to come on the playlist?
It just happened to come on the playlist, and I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. And then I was vibing with it, and I kept listening to it. And usually it's like the songs I really, really like that were like, you know, I'm that person who, like, if I like a song, I will repeat it like 60 times in a row until I become disgusted with it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what happened here. And then I was like, oh, okay, well, I kind of have a story now. So
yeah. Hell yeah, cool. Well, I mean, I think one of the besides like obviously use music as inspiration, it can be really, really good for getting yourself in the headspace. The other lesson there, I think, is like pay attention to what excites you. Like notice when something is getting you going, and like listen to what you're paying attention to, because there's usually something interesting going on.
Yeah, and I think for me too, like also just like, I don't know, just like being willing to have fun and like let it maybe not go anywhere. I mean, yeah, I have a huge folder of like half-used ideas, but you never know what comes back around again. So
yeah, I feel like all those half-used ideas, like they make a good compost heap for other stuff to grow out of, you know?
Exactly. Yeah.
Those nutrients aren't leaving your creative ecosystem.
Exactly. Like nothing's wasted. Just
Cool. All right, well, we've got bonus time, 4 minutes. So we got some options here for what we could do if we want to add to this place. One of them is, again, we could pull on Lore Master's deck and figure out either the dragons or the insects. We can give them some additional properties or details. So that'd be one. We could try and figure out more about the Bard College by maybe doing a story prompt or two or a character prompt or two, or even some faction prompts from Lore Master's deck. So if you were going to take 3 minutes and 45 seconds-ish to build something out, what would you want to build out?
I'm going with the insects. Like, I just feel like that's just,
Amazing. Okay, so then I'm going to pull, so I'm going to quickly find a card from the deck here that kind of describes an insect, because we already know what the insect is, so I'm not going to do a random draw for that. Let's see here. So we could do scorpion, unless that's too specific. Or we know they're a skin burrower, so we could call them a parasite.
Burrows. Yeah.
Let's do a parasite then for now. All right. And let's actually hold on. am I about to get really saucy? No, I'm not. I'm not. Okay. We're doing Parasite, and we're going to give it a little prompt here.
All right.
Okay, so this Parasite, just have a background where it was used in a faction's initiation ritual. A trait where it has a thick skull plate or mucus layer.
Ew.
A trait where it has antennae, eye stalks, or whiskers. Or a trait where it consumes, detects, or communicates through dreams.
Holy crap! All these are really good. All right. Consumes the. You know what? Actually, I'm gonna go with the consumes, detects, or communicates through dreams, and because what I'm thinking is that, like, okay, now I feel like the bards have kind of a purpose, because maybe the bards, like, as trying to heal people, they lull them to sleep, and then they try to communicate with the parasite to come out through while they're dreaming. So maybe we could some sleep music magic or something. I don't know, but so that's kind of cool.
Cool. Well, then I think we can. I might corner check this then, because then we can use the dream thing, and we can also kind of use the faction initiation ritual, or that it's tied to something.
Yeah,
that the things do.
True. Yeah.
So I'm gonna. That's you pulled a great twofer there. So let's do that to get 2 for 1. And then we know the faction is the bards, so we're not going to get to draw a faction card. And then we can pull another prompt here.
That came out really.
That's nice. And we still have 60 seconds to pick something here, so we can keep layering. We got time. So a background where the insect is no longer found in its original habitat, where it's highly intelligent or hive-minded. Oh God. Totally solitary or highly social, and then unusually short or long lifespan.
You know, I feel like we just got to go for the most terrifying option here. So I'm going with highly intelligent or hive mind, because if they're a hive mind and they're communicating through dreams, like,
Ooh, that's so unnerving. No, sorry. What were you going to say there? I keep shuddering, and I think I'm cutting you off.
No, I actually love the reaction, because, like, I feel like if you're already like squeamish about it, like, this is probably a great place to do some storytelling.
I don't think I have like an insect phobia, but now either I've gotten one or I'm learning something about myself.
They're underestimated horrors. Like, they are.
Well, we're about to beep here, so we'll call it there. But I guess my final question for you here. There's the beep. So where would you tell the story here? Where do you think you'd start if you were going to write a short story or novella or a novel? Where do you think you would pick up here?
I would have it be from the perspective of a bard that's coming in from another dimension to, like, join this fort, and he comes through right as they shut it down, and, like, no more people can come through. We're infested with hive-minded insect dream killers.
Right, like dimensional quarantine almost.
Yeah, like imagine you're just coming through thinking like, oh, I'm a new recruit, I'm happy to be here. Sorry, city shut down. You got to help us purge this infestation.
Yeah,
and the bugs hate us, by the way.
Yeah. And we were depending on the dragons to deal with this, and we ate most of them. So we're really bad timing. Really bad timing to overhunt the dragons.
So potential food shortage on top of everything else.
Yeah. No, there you go. When it rains, it pours. Love it. That is like conflict from the first page. That's the story I'd want to read. I love that. And there you go. That's 25 minutes, and we've got like easily a short story's worth of material. You could make a novella out of this. There's a lot of cool stuff going on. And then a pitch from the chat here from Emily. It would have been cool if we could use the dreams coming to life prompt that was on. We didn't use that for the Advent card, and the Parasite card, and then use the parasites communicating through the dreams. So that material's still there under the card. We can still pull all that in, pull that together. So again, think of the prompts that are underneath the cards as like that compost heap of other ideas you can still draw on and nourish the story with. So that's all still there, and I think that's a really cool pitch. Thank you, Emily.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah. Right. Well, Brent, thank you so much. This was so much fun. The sadness of doing the 25-minute speed world building is that you get cooking with someone, and then that's the time that you have. But this was a ton of fun. So where can folks find you online, and what have you been working on?
So you can find me at brentclambert.com. my big novella, Necessary Chaos, which is part of the Pride story bundle right now, which is really cool. But also, I want to show this. I'm part of this anthology. Best title ever. It's called "I Want That Twink Obliterated." It is a gay anthology of like science fiction and short fantasy stories through Pope lens. So check that out. Hilarious, good stuff in there. So
amazing, super cool. Can you show the cover one more time?
Oh yeah, for sure.
It's such a fantastic cover.
It's such a great cover, and like I got the sprayed edges too. So yeah, it's an amazing book.
Beautiful. I Want That Twink Destroyed.
Yeah.
Okay, love it, love it. Yeah, go check that out and find more of Brent's work at brentclambert.com. And Brent, thank you so much. This was a ton of fun.
Awesome,
again, normally I like to take a picture of all these at the end, but I need to clear the way for the next one. But this will be buried in my subconscious, hopefully not my flesh, for the rest of time. So thank you. Thank you for that. What a gift.
All right, yeah, this was a lot of fun.
All right. Thanks a lot. Cheers. Have a good one. Awesome. Okay, so we've done 2 of our 5 speed world building sessions that we'll be doing today. In case you are just joining us right now for the first time, I am Peter Chiykowski. I'm the creator of the Story Engine deck of Worlds, and Lore Masters deck. This is the Story Engine's YouTube channel, and today, to celebrate Free RPG Day, we are doing some speed world building. We're trying to see how dungeon masters and writers create settings and stories at the last minute using prompts. So we're running a little live experiment for what happens if you try to speed run the world building process. If you don't know, we are one of the sponsors of Free RPG Day. We created this little... I have so many piles of cards going on because we keep pulling expansions. It's been a really fun day so far. We created this Free RPG Day little 35 card sampler featuring 35 cards from Deck of Worlds. If you go to your local participating friendly game store, which you can find at freerpgday.com, you should be able to pick one up. While you're there, let them know if you're a Story Engine fan. Let them know if you'd like to see them stock the Story Engine deck of Worlds, Lore Masters deck, or any other Story Engine products. We would appreciate that. So yeah, you can find the 35 card sampler in participating stores. And if you want to, while you're there, you can let them know about us. Let them know about us. And also, while we bring up the next guest, something I would love to hear from the chat. What's your favorite RPG? If you're playing tabletop RPGs, what system are you playing right now, or what are you really into? Or if you're playing computer RPGs or like book RPGs, let me know what you're into right now. I'd love to hear about that. I myself have been playing around a little bit in Roll for Shoes lately, but I'm a 5e guy. I love D&D 5e. It does everything I need it to do. So most of the time when I'm running something, I'm running in that. It's kind of like it's my native language when I'm doing storytelling. But I do love experimenting with new systems. Cool. All right. Well, I think it is time for us to bring up our next guest. Our next guest, James Stevenson, is a poetry instructor at Alexander College in Vancouver. At age of 12, he was cursed by a stack of magical books, which is to say the AD&D 2nd Edition Player's Handbook, Monster Manual, and Dungeon Master's Guide, when he found them at a garage sale. It was, of course, the curse of the Forever DM. When he's not practicing voices for new NPCs, he's writing poetry and fantasy novels. You can find him at writewithlightning.com. Please join me in welcoming James Stevenson. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you, Peter. It is so wonderful to see you.
It's wonderful to see you too, bro. I told myself I would stay professional through the full intro, but
no, you
James,
won't.
I'm not. Yeah, James Stevenson is one of my best friends. He was best man at my wedding. We're best bros. Every time I'm on the West Coast or he's on the East Coast, we do a big high five and a big hug and a big hang. And it's been a minute since we've seen each other, so it's really fun to do a little bit of speed world building. This is getting to sneak work and pleasure into the same.
Yeah, one of the last times might have been you DMing for me. The Forever DM thing was not exactly true. I was lucky enough to be a player in a game that Peter was running.
Yeah,
that was an absolute joy.
Yeah, it was a really fun setting. It's called Sea Down. And actually, it's funny because since creating that setting and then hearing you talk about some of the ways that you do collaborative storytelling and world building as a dungeon master with some of your D&D groups, I've been thinking more and more about it and getting very into more of that collaborative storytelling style. You're one of the first people that I saw do that thing of like handing off a description to a player or like getting them to supply details. And now it's increasingly like one of the main things I do in my toolbox, my DM's toolbox. So thank you for that gift. It was super, super cool to see and it's sort of leaked into my other settings. And now it's weird to look back at Sea Down because it's a setting that I created without collaboration, without consulting the players. It was mostly like stuff that I thought was cool. And it feels weird to do it that way now.
But it always is collaboration because the character I created was meant to fit into your world, and my creation of that character did influence the things that you then put into it. So it's all
100%.
collaboration.
Yeah, James's character was a surfer druid. So a surfer dude who's a druid, named Maverick Keeley, and or Mav, or Keeley, he this like whole circle of surfer druids and like kind of like groovy dude magic got injected into the world through the creation of that character and shaped a bunch of things about it. So super cool.
And I'm so excited to do this today because I think like that's like when I build worlds, they are so character focused for me. So I'm really excited. Like I use the story engine more often than I use the deck of worlds. So I'm really interested to do the deck of worlds today, and just like I think I'm always thinking of what characters inhabit this place, and I'm excited to do this with you, Peter.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited too. I'm going to clear a new palette here and set up our space. Awesome. Actually, and I'm going to take, before I start our little timer here, I'm going to take just 2 minutes to clean up all of the things that I've been piling, because we got into playing with expansions, and playing with expansions can be dangerous when you have limited space, and I just want to make sure I know where everything goes in case we want to draw some expansions. So why don't you tell... Actually, I'll ask you the question. You heard me ask the question before. I usually ask it at the end. But before we start, the most last-minute writing deadline or session prep you've had to do as a writer or a dungeon master.
Right. So Peter knows that I'm a very organized person and plan very far ahead with everything. I schedule things out like meticulously in advance. But one of the most fun moments I had, because I was thinking about this question because I heard it in the last two. This has been great watching all this. One of my friends, we've been doing one-on-one D&D since we were teenagers. I will DM for him. And he was visiting me, and I quickly threw together an adventure that would tie into the actual campaign that I was running for other players, so that the things he was doing would have consequences in that main game, even though he was just visiting and he wasn't a part of that main game. Yeah. He ended up on the 600th level of the Abyss, which is Baphomet's area. This is like Minotaur, Labyrinth. Like I wanted that kind of theme, but I hadn't planned it. And if you don't plan a labyrinth successfully, it can just feel cheap because you're just randomly picking left or right. So I thought, what crazy way can I torture him through a labyrinth? Who would be running this labyrinth? And I thought of Sam Reich from Game Changers and Dropout, and that was this demon running the labyrinth, and it just everything fell together because I just pulled from all of the different shows, all the different Game Changers, and tortured him with those things, and it was incredible. It just it was all kind of improvised as we went, and that was really, really fun.
Yeah, you are definitely one of the your confidence in improv as a DM is something that I aspire to. I've seen you like be able to fly by the seat of your pants, and it's one of those things where I'm slowly building my capacity for it. When last year we did a totally improvised TTRPG stream with Roll for Shoes, and it's the most scared I think I have been as a performer in my life. Just because I'm like, I have no way to guarantee. It was only because we had like great collaborators who like I could like that it worked. And should we do one of these again, I would love to have you on for cast member.
Great.
So I think you'd be perfect for throwing you in without a safety net, without any preparations. Just go. Speaking of which, we're gonna go. We're gonna make it happen.
Let's improvise.
All right, so here we go. I'm going to start you off with the our lovely Free RPG Day Deck of Words sampler, and then after that you can pick expansions as you like. Also, chat, let us know if there's an expansion you'd like to see us use, and we'll give that some consideration about maybe pulling some cards from that. That includes the creative expansions. If we have bonus time at the end, we can add a little something that is not a main deck card type. So here we go. We'll start you off with your pick of 3 region cards. Do you want to do a setting based on canyons, on forest, or on desert? 25 minutes on the clock.
Okay. So my current campaign is starting in Amonkhet, and then it's going to go Planescape, and we're going to drift to many different places. So desert, I've been thinking about a lot, but just did this. I like the idea, I think, of canyon or forest. Okay. To just do something different for me. So if the chat would like to pick between those.
Amazing. We love a chat vote. So chat, James is going to count you down 3, 2, 1 in a second. You're going to write either canyons or forest in the chat, and the first word to get 3 votes is going to be our winner. James, please count us down.
3, 2, 1.
Hey. All right. It's funny. These are very Legend of Zelda. There's always a forest level. There's always a canyons level, without fail. Classic. These are just settings that are embedded in the DNA of my storytelling inspirations. Anyway, I'm very curious to see what we get from the chat. All right, we've got canyon, canyon, forest. We got one more canyon that takes it. Canyon takes it just ahead of forest. Okay, we're going with canyon. Thank you,
good.
Chat. Awesome. Okay, so now, James, do you want to go with the Free RPG Day sampler? Do you want to go with, we've got fantasy, science fiction, and horror expansions. We have got coastlines, Arctic, and desert expansions.
Yeah, I'd like the sampler. I think the sampler would be fun because that's what today is about.
Today is
people
about
getting
the
teased
sampler. Okay, cool. So here we go. You have your pick between landmarks, which are points of interest in a location. This would be very interesting, actually. Bog, so in a canyon it'd be a very interesting combination of terrain types. Or city.
Yeah, I like bog.
Okay.
Yeah, we just had city, and that was amazing.
Yeah.
That was really fun, that last one. Let's do something else. I know we had the swamp in the other one too, but yeah, this is an interesting combination of terrain.
Yeah, especially if the water source is sort of more tenuous in a deserty area, which canyons don't have to be deserty, right? But we think of them that way often. That would be very interesting. Okay. So we have our canyons, we have our bog. Time for the namesake card. Do you want to stick with sampler or do you want to bridge out? Free choice.
Sampler. I'm excited for sampler.
Sampler. Okay. Let's do sampler. Okay. Drawing a namesake card here. Also, I just saw Wyvern has been talking about the main RPG they've been playing with lately has been Shadow Dark. And then a loosely D&D escape room game. Oh, one an RPG I've never played before. Monster of the Week. I will say I've been playing a little bit of Shadow Dark with a friend of mine. It's a really interesting system. It's kind of, I think, in the like old school inspired systems, it can be a lot of fun. Your characters have enough interesting things to do while still feeling fragile and having to solve problems in a very like old school tabletop RPG way. So yeah, shout out to Shadow Dark. Great little system. Okay, back to our namesake card here. Do we have the wild canyons or wild bog, the canyons of seeing or the bog of seeing, the canyons of skulls or the bog of skulls, or the canyon of broken promises or the bog of broken promises?
Of seeing sounds awesome. Bog of Broken Promises is also an incredible name. Those are both pretty great. I think we should throw it to the chat again for those two.
Okay, so the canyons of seeing or the bog of broken promises.
Yeah.
Those are the offerings.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
So go ahead and vote for seeing or promises. And James, if you could please count us down.
Got it. 3, 2, 1.
Vote. So that's seeing or promises. And Brent is still hanging out and creating with us, which I love. So now this is a multi-way jam. All right, so seeing or promises. Promises came in with 3 right off the top.
Ooh.
All right,
Nice.
Thank you for your votes. Seeing got some late votes, but we will go with the Bog of Broken Promises. Interesting. I feel like that is where people who cheat go in this world.
Yeah.
They're banished to the bog.
Yeah. Just such an interesting idea because of the idea of the canyon. Because I can picture like when I was a kid, like the like in the little kind of valley-ish area near my place, there was a hill that had a bog on top of it. Like it wasn't, because it had its own low point up above, and that topography has always fascinated me. Of like having like the swamp above where like the river was. This is what I am imagiking.
Yeah, it's usually when you get like a bowl or a plateau-y area, an area that still gets some rainfall, but that like where it's contained. You can get the spaces. So cool. Okay, so then seeing the bog, in my head it was a low point, but it's the bog as a high point would be pretty cool.
Because it shouldn't be there. So then that's it can, but
yeah. Okay, fun. Well, then let's tease out a few more details here.
That's cool.
Okay, so we're gonna do an origin card. Or for those who've not created a setting before, who are just tuning in, 6 card types in Deck of Worlds. We picked our region card first, our canyons, which is our main terrain type. Then we picked our bog, which is a landmark or a point of interest within that terrain. Then we had our namesake card, which is a little fragment of a nickname. This doesn't have to be a literal name on the map. This could be a nickname by which it's known, or it could just be something that sort of gives some inspiration for what this place might be called. Next up, we're going to draw an origin card, and origin cards give us a little point in the past of a location, something that happened there before. Maybe something originated there, or maybe something caused the origins of this place to come about. So, oh yeah, and for this, do you want to do any expansions, or do you want to stick with sampler all the way through here? We got options as wanted.
Yeah, I think because I don't know what's in the sampler, so that's pretty exciting to me.
Beauty. Then we will stick with the sampler here. So, origin card. It provided haven during a historic disaster. It was shaped by years of foreign occupation. It was the site of an infamous murder, or 'twas shaped by an earthquake.
Yeah. So we're going earthquake so that this bog is from like a broken area that like an earthquake caused, and it's this broken promise. And something happened in the history of this area that they say this happened because of it. That a promise was broken between different groups, and then this formed. This break happened. We get the bog. And then it could even be like if these are canyons, then if there's different groups in these canyons and the bog is between them, that it's because of this broken promise, and then bad things are going to come from this bog.
Okay, yeah. So this is the second bog that bad things come from that we have, and I like that because it plays completely differently. This is nothing like so for our first guest was Alina Pete, and we ended up creating a swamp island. Okay, so yeah, you've been watching not from the
I missed part of it.
Yeah. But it was such a different way to look at a swamp. So still something bad coming from it, but completely different vibes. And here the name and the actual existence of the bog is sort of built into the storytelling about the world, who lives there, what they believe about cause and effect, what they believe about retribution, and that like bigger forces could change the shape of the world based on decisions that people make. Like all of that is now going into the world and giving us lots of rich stuff to work with in terms of story. So why don't we explore that a little bit more? Especially if we were looking for stories, you said you do a lot of character-based world building. Attribute cards have a lot more prompts than any other card type for describing the people who live there. So we can find out a little bit more about the people that our characters might come from. So we will go with the sampler again here. An attribute card. So we can have that the area is polluted, that the people there have an unusual election process, that the area is a hunting ground, or that the area is known for fossils.
I mean,
what are you vibing?
Well, we got to go fossils, Peter. Especially because of those incredible poems that you had published. I think it was Grain. Were those your dinosaur poems? Those were amazing. We're going fossils. I'm just in on the fossils.
I don't think I've ever picked not fossils on this card myself. So
that's fair.
After my own heart here. All right.
Because especially if it's broken and there's these broken promises, because what we want is obviously zombie. We want skeletal dinosaurs that are now rising up.
Yeah. And we'll do whatever we have to do to make that happen.
Yeah, of course.
So known for fossils. I'll put that on the canyons, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
For now. And I also like the
bog though too. Like that's.
Oh, you're right.
That has, because like the bog has was containing them, and now that the ground is broken, they are rising out of the bog.
Yeah. And the other thing is they have found 1,000-year-old bodies, mostly not decomposed, in peat bogs. Fossil does not have to mean bones. As far as I know, you could still refer to specimens that were the flesh is intact as fossils. But this could be a bog that actually has kept the bodies relatively fresh. And in which case we could definitely have our not just zombie dinosaurs with bones, but zombie dinosaurs with flesh still on it, so that all the paleontologists in the area can stop arguing about scales versus feathers.
I like it.
And
evil fossils are a mood.
They are a mood, absolutely. Beautiful. Okay. Also, shout out to Alessia, who has been running our chat. Alessia has been working with us at the Story Engine for a couple of months now, and it's just been really, really invaluable in helping out with logistics, and is increasingly the person who is in charge of the customer service inbox and helping solve problems getting decks sent out. So shout out to Alessia. Thank you so much. And thank you for running our chat today. Okay. We've got our earthquake, we've got our fossils, we've got our broken promises, we got our bog, we got our canyons. It's time to make some trouble. It is time for the Advent card. Okay, and again, if you're following along at home, origin cards give you a little piece of the past. Attribute cards tell you what things are like right now in the present. Advent cards give you a coming change that could affect the future. It is wonderful, wonderful, wonderful to be able to have this sort of arc through time for your setting. It's nice to have a card that is kind of the start of a story, the start of a change, the start of a conflict. And that's what Advent cards do. So if you are a last-minute dungeon master trying to come up with a session concept, these are really helpful cards for finding out where your session hook's going to be. So James, we have a revolutionary manifesto is causing an uproar. The manifesto can be highlighting injustice, stoking division, or revealing political secrets. Or we have, there is a rush to discover a mythical burial site. And this is for religious reasons, for grave robbing, or bragging rights.
Yeah, I mean that fits perfectly with what we're doing here. So let's go burial site, because then it's the burial site of dinosaur bones. We are not leaving our feathered dinosaurs behind.
Yeah.
So there is a rush to get to those dinos in the bog, perhaps harnessing them for either side, because wouldn't you want these shadowy, necrotic, still feathered T-Rex skeletons on your side?
Absolutely, you would. And this kind of raises a question for me of how recent do you think the bog and the tectonic activity and the broken promise thing happened? Because this is feeling increasingly like it was really recent now.
Recent. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So that's when we get to our adventure hook. This is like the because I'm definitely thinking in terms of D&D here. This might even end up as a world for my players who may or may not be in the chat and are getting nice spoilers. But that if this is a world that they go to, they walk into this as these two groups are competing for it, and then do they pick sides like in this conflict? Yeah.
That is interesting, and especially if they have people from both sides kind of petitioning them. That is a lot of fun. Okay, well, we have a micro setting. We did that in 13 minutes, a lucky number, which gives us some time to do some creating. But because everyone else had to answer a question once they finished their setting, I'm still going to ask you one. So you gave me an answer as a DM as to how some last minute creation you've done. But tell me, as a writer, and James and I did our master's programs together. That's how we met, was in the master's program. I definitely did some last minute essays in that year. So whether this is in your academic career, whether this is writing for anthologies, submitting for like calls, what is the most last minute writing you've put together, and what has helped you find inspiration when you were doing that last minute scramble?
Yeah, I think I probably did a lot more of that than I'm really thinking about for like some of the like poetry journals that I sent poems to, because I love calls. Like that's why the deck of worlds is so great, because I love having just like little bits of inspiration in front of me and then being able to create from them. So like, even I know you really like my How to Make a Dirty Martini poem, Peter.
Such a good poem.
And that was quick, because that deadline was just something where when you have a quick deadline, you just have to work so fast to find like, how does that prompt really hit you? I was part of a writers group where we had to do where we did poetry prompts and had 30 seconds and then just started writing. What an incredible thing. I miss doing that. That was like, it's hard to replicate when you don't actually have other people keeping you honest. So I mean, having, I think, like a writing group or others who are keeping you accountable is very valuable, because if it's just you, it is very easy to just say, this isn't like, if it's not a deadline that anybody else really cares about, it's tough. It's tough to set one's own goals and have that motivation.
Yeah, I absolutely hear you on that. And actually, I know that I think Seth Ring, who's an author who uses Deck of Worlds and Story Engine Deck in his writing, I think he occasionally does writing streams. So if you are someone who like wants to join another writer stream where he does writing sprints, check out Seth Ring. I think he runs those. Something I've been thinking about doing is doing 1 or 2 writing sprint sessions with Story Engine Deck as a stream, just people writing together to see if it's something that people would be interested in. So if you would want to be part of a writing sprint session, let us know in the chat. I'd love to know if this is something that would be of interest to people. I'm also going to take a minute to say hi to Clark Rowensson in the chat. I can see you there backstage. We're finishing up with James here. We've got 9 minutes left on the clock to do some bonus world building, and then we will bring you up for your speed round. In the meantime, there's a little private chat if you got any questions, and Alessia can help you out there. But we've got 9 minutes, James. You love to world build around characters. So do you want to do something with the Story Engine deck, the classic Story Engine deck, and or any of the expansions to create a little bit of character for this?
That would be awesome.
Yeah. All right. What are you thinking? What would you like me to pull from?
Fantasy-ish. Like, yeah.
Fantasy-ish. Okay, let's do the fantasy expansion then. This features art from a really wonderful tabletop RPG, which you should definitely go check out today on A Day to Celebrate RPGs, called Emberwind. I'm going to see if I have any Emberwind within grabbing distance.
Do I have Emberwind within grabbing distance?
Oh, do you?
I don't. It's in my book. It's on my bookshelf. Okay.
I managed to find. Actually, this is a book that me and Eric were writers on. Eric is the one of the writers here with us at the Story Engine. It is called The Songleaf Tapestry. One thing that's really cool about Emberwind is it is it can be run as a solo RPG. It can be run without a GM as a group if you don't want to have a GM-based system, using something called Crossroads, which is a way of sharing some narrative decision-making as players. It's a really fantastic little RPG, and we rated their art library for most of the Lore Masters deck boxes, and we also used it for this expansion here, written in Dragonfire, which is our fantasy expansion. So any artwork you see in here is from there. And let's go ahead and make ourselves a little story prompt here. Okay. Shuffle and draw an agent card. So James, do you want to do a story about a warlock, a conqueror, a wizard, or a ruler?
Warlock, because we're getting into like the darker magic that has created our bog, or at least those who'd be interested in it. Like this could be one of the archaeologists who has arrived and is trying to harness the power of these shadow rexes that are in the bog of broken dreams. Cool.
That makes a ton of sense. That fits into our story beautifully. Let's find out a little bit more than what this warlock's motivation is. So we're going to go ahead and draw an engine card. Do they want to enchant something, or do they want to create a masterpiece for or involving something?
Masterpiece?
Cool. We can figure out what that means more as we draw cards here.
I think. I mean, they want the masterpiece of dinosaurs is really what they want. Maybe they have to put the skeletons together.
Oh, that'd be fun. It's like one of those kits you get in a gift shop at a museum.
Yeah. Because like the bones are actually separated, so you have to make sure that you put all the bones back together, and then from the Tyrrell Museum of Paleontology.
Oh yeah.
Great times.
Yeah. Shout out to the Tyrrell Museum, and shout out to Drumheller, Canada's dinosaur capital. One thing that was very sad about growing up in Ontario in Canada is that the Canadian Shield is older than dinosaurs, so all the rock formed there before dinosaurs. So there's not really any good fossil stuff going on for dinosaurs specifically in Ontario. Nova Scotia is great for it, which is where I live now. British Columbia is good for it, which is where James is. But I grew up a sad boy with no dinosaurs. Okay, well, let's figure out what the warlock is trying to create a masterpiece for or involving.
Yeah.
A bulwark, a mask, a carving, or a smithy.
Well, I think we already know that it is I like the idea that it is a dinosaur. Like he is trying to put together the dinosaur, so it's more of what is it for?
Right.
And I don't think any of those work really for what I'm envisioning, which I think is a good thing also to bring up of how like this works, is that you're not stuck to the cards you draw. Like let them inspire you, let your imagination run whenever it hits.
Yeah. Absolutely. So there's two things you can do here. If something's not working, and I should say at the back of the Story Engine deck guidebook, there's a whole section on how to troubleshoot a prompt if you get stuck, if something is not working. So one thing you can do is look at the prompt again and think about how to interpret things more metaphorically. So a mask could then mean like a front or a disguise, or like a a presentation that is not true. A bulwark could be something that's defensive, like maybe he looks like he's the bad guy, but he's actually rallying this in defense of a greater threat. That's one option we have. The other option we have is discard and draw another card. If it's not working, the second guideline of both Story Engine deck and Deck of Worlds is if a guideline is not working for you, change it, ignore it, do what you got to do to make something serve your purpose.
Or it applies to something else, because if there are two competing factions here, which it feels like there's a competition, then that could apply to what somebody else is trying to create or do as well.
Yes. Okay, so then I'm going to do actually our final guest, who's going to be coming on in a half hour-ish, Claire. She came on a previous stream and coined the term the pickle shelf, which is where you put things to pickle in case you want to use them later. So we're going to put that on the pickle shelf. We're going to draw another card instead. And for this one, I'm going to draw from the Story Engine main deck, because Story Engine main deck tends to have a few more cards that are... this fantasy expansion in particular has a lot of locations and objects, because we knew that those would be very helpful for world builders. The Story Engine main deck has tends to have things, at least one prompt that is not quite as literal, like a world in this case, which can be helpful if you're trying to connect it to a queue or a prompt that is a bit more like open-ended like that. So do they want to create a masterpiece for or involving an archive, a world, an island, or an atlas? Any of those work for you?
So the idea of like the world, I mean, this is now we're bridging into the concept of Jurassic World, but if they are trying to create this, like going back to that other, like to a previous time where, what's up? What's your idea? I saw your face looked excited.
That would be healing the broken promise. I mean, this looks like a very dark way to do it, but if they're trying to send the world back in time, that would be before the fault happened, before the broken promise.
And now we've ruined the ending for my players, that if in fact the warlock is the good guy who is in fact mending the broken promise rather than just being the evil.
Yeah. Apologies to James's players. You know what? You can decide. We can have all the options open, and then you can decide in the last minute based on how you want to twist things.
Well, surely I would never do that now. Like I can still trip them.
Yeah. Beauty. Okay, then what? Let's put this aside. Normally we do a conflict and an aspect, but we've got 2 minutes, so I want to see what the other faction looks like. Do you want to have a faction card from Lore Master's deck, which is faction based? Okay. Let's do it. That's right here.
Yeah. So we've got the warlock, just kind of maybe warlock on one side with whomever is attached to them, but.
Here we go. So then on this other side, we have a faction. Is it a domain, a protest, a band, or a faculty?
Protest is so interesting. If they're trying to stop the warlock from going into the bog, like you should leave this stuff where it is. Yeah. It's a sacred site. Yeah.
Okay. I like protest. And again, two very different reasons for wanting the same thing, and both of them have potentially admirable reasons for doing it, which makes the conflict very rich. So we love that. With Lore Master's deck, we draw some backside cards to provide additional context for our protest here. So a background where that protest, that movement restored a location, where they have an agenda to make a resource publicly accessible, a trait where they frequently work out of a certain kind of location, and then we'd pull a location card to figure out what kind of spaces they tend to occupy or work from, or a trait where they're known for corporal punishment. Step out of line and you're going to feel it.
Whoa, interesting. So restored location, which of course kind of makes sense. Work out of a certain location makes sense. I think the punishment is interesting.
I think especially if they, on the surface, appear to be the quote-unquote good guys.
Right.
Them having a little something that starts to come out, like the way that they keep things in line is interesting for making them a bit more complex.
For sure.
All right, we can do one more really, really, really quickly. One more trait for our protest here. A trait where they have a special ritual involving a substance, trait where they're the keepers of a key or a door, a background where they're nicknamed after a creature, or an agenda where they are trying to secure political independence.
Wow. I mean, a lot of those sound really good. I can hear our timer going off. I mean, if we had more time, because I'm so curious what nickname we would draw.
Let's very quickly, we're going to cheat here. Duck, worm, coyote, whale.
Coyote. For the canyons.
Oh, and then also, like, the coyotes often dig up bones. Okay, love it. Nicknamed after a creature, a coyote. Okay, cool. Love it. I am very curious to hear how this goes. If you have any... I would actually love to put this in one of our newsletters if you want to tell us how it ended up going. Some follow-up on this.
I can tell you in 2 years when our
when we get there.
our beautifully slowly paced campaign reaches that point.
Love it. Well, let me know in 2 years, because I do want to know how the story ends. James, thank you so much for joining me.
This is wonderful, Peter. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, and 25 minutes, and we have like I said, there are workable concepts for a session here. This could be multiple sessions depending on how gnarly the decision making as to which side your support gets. Thank you for coming. I really appreciate it. I love you, bro. It is always amazing to spend time with you, and getting to do RPG stuff and creative stuff. Always a joy. James, where can people find you, and what are you working on?
I am Right Lightning on most social media things that I very rarely ever use. I've just been spending most of my time focusing on teaching my poetry classes. I'm working on novels that I'd eventually like to get published, but they're in editing stages. So perhaps someday in the future, I would love to share more of that writing with everyone. But for today, I would like to use this moment not to pitch anything of my own, but to recommend to everyone an absolutely incredible poet, and just because this is National Indigenous Peoples Day in Canada, that I'd like to recommend Jess Housty, Housty. Their book, Crushed Wild Mint, is absolutely beautiful. It's one of the best poetry books I've read in so long. I've been teaching their poems in my class. It resonates very powerfully with my students, and that is what I'd like to recommend for today.
Do I have this spelled correctly?
It's perfect.
Jess Housty, Crushed Wild Mint. Go find that. Also, a thing that you should do on Indigenous Peoples Day, if you live in Canada and you don't already know this, is look up which Indigenous groups are ancestrally lived on the lands where you live. It's, I think, a really important thing to know, to be aware of the history of the land you live in, and to be grateful for the caretakers who made it what it is. Yeah, cool. So go check out Jess Housty, Crushed Wild Mint. James, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, chat, for joining us for this.
Yep.
It's such a joy to hang out with you, Peter. I love you.
Love you. We'll catch you later. All right. Bye, bro. Awesome. Okay, in case you're just coming in, this is our free RPG Day stream. We are doing speed world building with 5 different world builders who represent different expertises in storytelling, writing, and role playing. Our next guest is sitting actually in a very interesting space for RPGs and writing, because he is writing, or has finished writing, I believe, a lit RPG novel. Which, if you don't know about lit RPG, it's a really interesting genre where the storytelling takes place actually kind of within an RPG-based universe, where there are statistics, power levels, where the characters level up, where items have very specific properties. I finally got to read Dungeon Crawler Carl for the first time last month, and really enjoyed it. And so I'm starting to understand the genre more and more. We've had a lot of requests for a lit RPG expansion at some point, so we're now one step closer to that happening. Yeah, I'm very excited to get our next guest's take on world building, looking at it from both the perspective of if this is a game world, and also if this is a world to tell a story in as a novel. So we're being joined by Clark Rowensson. Fascinated by magic since pine cones could be fireballs, Clark Rowensson is an award-winning author, blogger, and writing coach that studies magic systems like others study oil painting. His prime directive is to help storytellers craft and repair all the places their stories go beyond reality. You can visit crrowensson.com or his YouTube channel, The Magic Engineer, to witness, fuel, or join his obsession. Please join me in welcoming Clark Rowensson. Hello.
Hello. And you can hear me, correct?
We can hear you.
Okay. Always double check on the tech issues.
Actually, your audio is actually beautiful. It is really crisp. You can tell that you do this professionally.
I love this headset is good when it's working, but
Yeah.
I'm so happy to be here. If people couldn't tell, like I have been a fan of the Story Engine stuff since the very first Kickstarter. So
yeah, Clark's been day one, and Clark has actually done a guest blog for us on StoryEngine.com. We did a guest blog for Clark's blog. We've swapped some inspiration and ideas. So if you want to get at the end of this session, if you want to learn more about how you can use the Story Engine deck to think about magic systems in your world and magical geography, you can go ahead and just search his name on our blog or on our website, and that'll come right up from the blog section. But yeah, thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it.
Not a problem. Happy to be here.
Do you play tabletop RPGs at all yourself, or what's your relationship to RPGs like?
I do. I have played in tabletop RPGs with various groups for apparently I did the math a little while ago and was a little upset to realize it's been close to 20 years now. The number shouldn't be that high, but whatever.
Yeah.
So I've been doing that for a long time. I ran multiple games with friends. My wife and I moved to a new city in about 2020, middle of the pandemic, and that sort of disrupted stuff. I haven't found a group that I have been playing consistently with since, but I have recently started learning about solo RPG stuff, which I was glad you mentioned that before. So, like, I've been playing Ironsworn, I got Starforged, I've been messing around with Mythic, the Mythic GM emulator, and stuff like that. But so, yeah, I have been reading and loving tabletop RPGs for a long time. I have something like, as most of us do, like 2 to 3 dozen different game systems just sitting on my shelf and on my hard drive, which is why I was so excited about solo RPG, because then maybe I can start chewing through those when I can't find other people to play with.
Yeah, yeah. Absolutely. And yeah, you can plug solo RPG into so many other systems. Actually, our final guest, Claire, we're probably going to build our world with solo RPG exploration in mind when we do it.
Nice.
So please stick around for, if you're able to, stick around for Claire's section, because I think you'll really enjoy it.
Absolutely.
And you can also, on the Story Engine blog, find a couple of blogs from Claire, who basically went through the same experience you did of, like, pandemic, really was missing role-playing games, and got into solo RPG through that, and actually wrote that process out in a guest blog for us. So if you're getting into solo RPGs and want a little bit of a guide to the basic systems, Claire has a really, really great blog, and also her YouTube channel is good for that as well. Yeah, but I've had a lot of questions about lit RPG, so I would love if we could, for our world building section here, tell me a little bit about how you would build this world differently, knowing that you create something for lit RPG with it, if that's something you'd be open to. Or if you want to stick with your magic system focus as well, we can do that as well. But it's definitely something that I'm curious about as I try to learn more about it.
I mean, it all kind of bleeds together, right? Especially when you had mentioned Dungeon Crawler Carl, especially when you start connecting any of the Magic Reality Plus stuff that you're doing in your story into systemization, whether it's an RPG system or you're trying to do structured systemization in the world for factions, groups, organizations, science. It really all starts to bleed together. And I don't know that there is a specific difference as to how I approach it between lit RPG, standard fantasy, doing tabletop RPG on my own, or connecting it into a reality plus world or story that I'm doing for fun. I'm trying to think about if there is a specific way that I do it differently. I guess really the only thing is because I use these decks a lot. I am co-authoring a lit RPG series, and I use these decks a lot when we were doing some of the initial world building and some of the initial setup. So the main thing that helped me is I let go of some of the rationale that I would try and put into my other games, because going in knowing that, like, this is a game, this is a fabricated world that doesn't have to make geological sense. So I can lean into the coolness of things without people getting upset. Because in the series we're writing, mankind has gotten to the point where they have developed the singularity, and to manage population, you go through a rite of passage where you can be uploaded into the singularity, and then you get to pick any of these thousands of worlds to start life in. And so these are all constructed, they're fake worlds in the singularity for people to go and have fun and live the lives that they want, either of adventure or peace or whatever. So we didn't have to pay as close attention to, like, would a mountain range be here? How would that affect this stuff over here? I thought about some of it, but I didn't get as into the weeds as I might otherwise. That was probably the biggest difference for me.
Cool.
As opposed to doing it for a more standard sort of fantasy setting.
Yeah. All right. Well, then I'll be interested to bring that lens to the creative process here. I'm going to clear the last world we created off the board and make room for our new one here. Is there a particular expansion that you would like to play with today?
No, we can do any and all of them. When I'm playing around with the decks because I'm bored and I just want to do stuff, it'll vary. Sometimes I'll just shuffle them all together, or I'll just stick to the core deck. So I guess, what is one that you feel hasn't really been showcased? And let's do that one.
We haven't gotten to use the cartography expansions yet. So these are the ones that are focused on Arctic, desert, and coastal world building.
Okay.
So if there's one of those you'd want to crack open.
Yeah, let's do the desert one.
Awesome. Okay. Clark was was being modest and not promoting the name of his forthcoming novel in the Lit RPG series, but you can find Spawn Point on Amazon. You can pre-order it right now and be one of the first to get it. So please check out Spawn Point on Amazon. We'll be dropping a link to that later on in the chat. Actually, let's drop it right now while we're talking about it.
And real quick, for anybody who's in the chat who doesn't know what Lit RPG is, Peter did a good job summarizing it. The other way I like to explain it, we're all here. We've all done tabletop RPGs. The best way I have to explain it is if you took that campaign that you played with your group and you wrote the fantasy novel or the sci-fi novel, you wrote that story from the perspective of the characters, but the characters were aware of the game mechanics. That's Lit RPG. So your character's like, sweet, I leveled up. I get to pick a feat, or I need to figure out where I advance my next attribute point. That's Lit RPG. You just put the game mechanics in, the characters are aware of it, and there's all kinds of framing you can put in to make it make sense. Like Dungeon Crawler Carl has a setup, Spawn Point has a different setup. There's all kinds of stuff, but that's the basics.
Cool. That is a great description. I'm going to tuck that away for later. Okay, well, here we go. Let's do, you said deserts, right?
Yeah.
If I remember right? Okay, here we go. The deserts expansion. I'll give you a choice of 3 region cards, and we'll put time on the clock, 25 minutes. Here we go. Do you want to create a Mesa-based setting, a Badland-based setting, or a City-based setting?
Mesa.
Love a Mesa. Sweet. Okay.
Badlands are tempting, but Mesa.
Yeah. And if you ever want to dip into other expansions, we don't have to stick to deserts throughout here. But let's do a landmark card. Does this Mesa have an outpost or a flat?
So when you guys made this card, what did you mean by flat? Were you just thinking like a flat expanse, or what exactly was that to you?
I was specifically thinking of a salt flat or like a salt pan kind of space.
Okay.
So it's an area where you get these very specific, and you can see it's more communicated through the artwork here. You get these very specific drying formations, often with a crust of salt on top, due to the way that like water that pools and then evaporates in the flat space.
Okay, yeah, let's go with flat. That is something I find myself sometimes when I'm working with the decks. I have to go look up some of the terms to find different versions of what it is.
I went deep into my thesaurus for them, so occasionally I'll get to a prompt that I wrote when I looked up what it meant, and then I've forgotten, and I have to go look it up again. The one that we always get, moraine. We always have to define moraine whenever it comes up, which is the deposits left over after glacial action in a valley sort of shape.
Okay.
And moraines tend to be rich in ecology because of those rich deposits.
Yes.
But flat in this case is, so the flat area where you'll often get salt forming and the interesting drying action happening in different rain cycles. Okay, cool. Do you want to stick with the desert expansion? Do you want to start to mix in, because we want to get magic going for either the Lit RPG aspect or for the magic engineering aspect? We could pull on fantasy. We could also even play with sci-fi if we want to see if there's some kind of technology that's driving the mechanics or the engine of the RPG. So I'll throw it over to you here.
Really, what I want to do is honestly any of the things that you have been wanting to play with people and it hasn't come up.
Okay.
If you don't have something in mind, I can pick something, but I like the challenge of being like, hey, what's something that doesn't get done as much?
Then let's do. Okay. Let's do fantasy for the next one because I do think I want to see some magic happen. And
all right.
Then,
yeah.
And then let's do sci-fi because I do want to see what happens when we sort of inject a bolt of technology in here.
Absolutely. That sounds good.
You're our
Maybe
only
some
Lit
cyberpunk
RPG guy,
or
and I think
something.
it's a unique opportunity. Okay, so then pulling the fantasy one back out. Okay. So, namesake cards. Namesake cards, for those who don't know in the chat, these are little fragments of a nickname we're going to pair with either Mesa or Flat to give it a lore-based nickname that actually exists inside the world. So we could have the Gnomish Mesa, the Gnomish Flat, the Mesa of Spears, the Flat of Spears, the Mesa of Mages, the Flat of Mages, or the Mesa where monsters dwell, or the Flat where monsters dwell. Is there anything here that's of interest to you as you look it over?
I am torn between where monsters dwell and of spears.
This sounds like we could throw it to the chat for a vote then.
Yeah, let's do that.
Sick. Okay, so you're going to count down 3, 2, 1 for our chat, and then they're going to vote for either monsters or spears. And the first thing to get 3 votes will be our winner. So
Okay.
Go ahead and count us down,
3,
please.
2, 1, go.
Spears or monsters. So what do you have in mind when you hear those 2 prompts? What's coming to mind for you?
So I was either thinking Mesa where monsters dwell or actually the Flat of Spears, because contradictions are a fun thing to explore in the world building for me, is being like, why did these 2 get matched together? And yeah, those are kind of the 2 directions I'm going in. It looks like monsters won.
Monsters won.
So
and we'll do the Mesa of Monsters.
yeah, the Mesa where monsters dwell.
Monsters dwell. I'm trying to think if there's any way we can. No, I don't think there's a way to finagle the cards to do both, because you got me very interested in the Flat of Spears, which again is still. There's nothing that says that that's still not true about this world, and we can't use that.
Right.
And I'm seeing some awesome questions that came in from the chat that we'll answer, I think, after we finish this session. So one of the questions is, when using these cards, do people find that they choose prompts based on following a thread and like building on something unknown? Or more, whatever makes sense in the context or flow of the cards. So I'd love to hear answers from that in the chat, and we'll discuss answers later. Brent mentioned that he does either or. He tends to try and see what the randomness of the cards will provide and follow it. Alessia, who's been running a chat for us, says that the best use of cards is however they work for you. And I would agree with that, but I'm curious to hear how other people use it. Wyvern said, for me, this depends on context. I've used the decks to help design RPG settings. Some elements there will be pre-decided, but often the cards take me to completely new ideas. And I think looking for the novelty is often really helpful with these. And then we have a new question from Mystic here. Is the Lore Masters deck a combination of the story and world decks, or is it just used for creating history? I'm a GMDM, so I don't know what would be best for me. So I'm going to answer that question at the end of the session, so I don't use up any more of your precious world building speed round time. But Mystic, we will get to your question. Rad. Alessia was ahead of me. This was going to be part of my answer, but we recommend this blog for helping choose which deck is right for you. If you search which deck in our website, this blog will probably come up, and we have one that's specifically good for people who play D&D or who are dungeon masters of some kind. Wyvern has a great answer to this as well, but let us move on with the world building. So, origin card. I think it's especially interesting to pull from science fiction for this, because if this world were to be computer generated, which not all lit RPG has to be, but if it were going to be computer generated, Origins would be a good place to explore that theme. So we'll see if this works. This is an experiment we're doing here. All right, Clark. So is our location here the origin of a bioengineered species? Is it built from starship parts? Is it the site of the first space launch? Or is it shaped with sound?
I love me ancient ruins and old civilizations, so I want to go with built from starship parts.
Very cool.
And kind of what I'm picturing is not necessarily that the mesa itself was constructed, but we have these old starships that have crashed here, and then the mesas and things, the landscape has formed around them.
Ooh, yes, yeah. And that gives a very deep sense of time. If you have something that was once very new, that is under something very old, you've already got some story happening there. Beautiful. Okay. So next up is going to be our attribute card. So I'm gonna do. We haven't touched the Coastlines expansion yet, so I'm gonna pull one. I'm gonna give you a choice. I'm gonna pull 2 cards, and you'll get an extra round of choices here.
Sounds good. And that is something I do a lot when I'm using the deck. I don't know how much other people do. I like to draw 2 cards every time I'm supposed to draw 1, so that I have lots of things to pick from. Plus then it lets me pull from like the core deck and one of the expansions, and it's a way for me to use the expansions without always having to shuffle stuff together.
Yeah, we did that actually a little bit during Brent's stream. We would draw one from the main deck, and then if there was nothing that we got really excited about, we'd then draw one from one of the expansions, and that turned out to be a really fun way to do it. But in the chat, let us know what your what is the rule that you break when you use the deck? That's something that I'd love to know. What rules do people break when they use the deck? Because that's often where you find out. I'm going to use up another 30 seconds of your time to talk about something I love as a design principle: desire line paths. This is in cities where you see an area of grass that's been tread down to just bare dirt because people take a shortcut there.
Yes.
And usually when you see that, it means that whoever designed the space didn't actually think about how people was going to use it. So desire line paths as a designer helped me realize whenever people change the rules or cut a corner, they probably found a better way to do it because those desire line paths come from people unconsciously making the best decision for themselves. So I love to know what rules people break because those are desire line paths to help me design better. And if you are a writer or an RPG player and you find that your players are making assumptions about your world that are interesting, follow the desire line path. Make that officially a path in your world and see where it leads you because it's often something really interesting there. Okay,
Yes.
Tangent over. So we're going to pull one from Coastlines.
Yeah, I knew that was going to be the hardest part of the stream for me, was keeping from the tangents because I love going off and talking the theory and all that different stuff.
Oh, I love theory. Oh no, I cannot find Coastlines. Okay. Oh, here it is. Okay.
That's all right.
Awesome. We found it in the end. We got Coastlines, and then we'll do one from the sampler. That's what we'll do.
Sounds good.
Okay. So from Coastlines, for our attribute card, which is details about the location of the people who live there, we have it is governed by pirates. It is known for aquatic pets. It's a good fishing spot. Or there's rare algae or sea flora. And then from the main deck, we've got composed of an unusual material, known for pastries, powerful storms, and home of an eccentric hermit. So, what is tickling your fancy here?
The composed of an unusual material seems obvious. I do really like rare algae or seafloor associated with the flat.
Oh,
because you were talking about like the dinosaurs and fossilization and stuff like that before. Yeah, there's some fun ways we could go, and I already talked about the starships being an ancient thing. We're already messing with geologic timescales, so we could stretch this out to any level. Like if you were doing this with an RPG, it might be a thing where these ends up being the forebears that seeded this planet 2.1 billion years ago. Like all kinds of stuff we could do.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. I love the time play that's going on here, so let's lean into that. I'm also going to take a quick moment to say hi to Claire backstage. Hi, Claire. We're running a little bit over time because I've been doing tangents. So you can see the clock here. We got about 14 minutes left on Clark's speed round, and then we'll have you up. And we've got questions about solo RPGs, so it's wonderful again to have our solo RPG expert ready to jump in shortly. Okay, so we will continue on here with our Advent card. And here, actually, why don't we turn this over to the chat to pick which expansion we'll draw it from. So, chat, could you please vote between fantasy, science fiction, and let's do coast, or we'll go back to desert. So, if you could please vote for fantasy, science fiction, or coastlines in the chat, Clark will count us down.
3, 2, 1, go.
And Wyvern added an answer. I like to work with whatever the cards bring up, but sometimes an alternative works too, depending on context, e.g. getting something to better fit when designing an RPG setting. Yeah. Appreciate the answer.
Oh, it's a tie. Sci-fi. Right. Cool.
Fantasy, sci-fi. Yeah, you're right. Sci-fi just came out ahead. It was a close one, though. Okay, so we're going to pull our Advent card from sci-fi.
Good tiebreaker, Robin.
Yeah, clutch. Okay. So for our... Actually, and in the honoring the tradition of drawing two, I'll draw two from sci-fi here. They have just created a new form of life, an extinct clone, genetic hybrid, or cyborg. An alien species is running rampant through the ecosystem. It is plant-like, cephalopod-like, or bird-like. Life support tech is failing, and no one can fix it. due to lack of parts, lost technical knowledge, or a saboteur. And a mysterious signal has just been activated. An energy pulse, recorded message, or distress signal. That one is tickling the lit RPG curious part of my brain, I'll tell you.
Yes, that's a mysterious signal. That's definitely a mysterious signal. Like there's several other theirs that would be very good, very interesting. But yeah.
Where do you want this? The flat or the mesa?
I would put it with the mesa.
Okay.
Because the other part of this is this might not be a signal that anybody knows has been triggered. Because for anybody who's I'm starting to get vibes of like Scavenger's Reign in my head for anybody who's seen that show, but maybe like thousands of years later. But yeah, it might not be a signal that people know was sent out, might be a signal that was deliberately sent out. Lots of different ways you could go.
Cool. I love it, and yeah, mysterious signal is just like I think I've always picked that cue over the other one. There's some of these where like there's one that always wins for me. But cool. Okay, so do you want to do any more theory crafting about what we've got going on here? Do you want to talk about what you've got in mind or where you'd see a novel going, or do you want to pull some other cards in and we can add some characters or some other elements to the world? Totally up to you.
Let's pull. I'd like a faction of some kind.
Yeah. Let's do it.
Because right now, desert, mesa, flat, we have a lot of past time stuff. One current thing, but I don't have much in my head about who and what is there.
Okay.
So either monsters or faction, either one of those, we're gonna need a little more of that.
Okay, then what I'm gonna do. Let's start with the faction. I think we got time for both. I'm gonna draw two for you. You can go ahead and pick here. So for our faction, this is again, we're switching to Lore Masters deck now. Are you looking for a conclave, a force, a commune, a troop, an office, a mob, a group, or a platoon?
Commune. I think there is a commune that is being set up in the flats, either around or maybe even on top of some of the mesas.
Cool. We love a commune. People sort of in a limited space with common cause, but also forced to rely on each other. Always really, really interesting for stories. And let's give them some details here. So we're going to use the backside of the Lore Masters cards to give details. So they have a background for this commune where they lost control of their former headquarters. An agenda to hasten a prophecy. And for all of these cards, we would draw, for these two prompts, we would draw an additional card to find out what the prophecy is or what the headquarters are. A trait where they are leaderless, they have no clear leader, or a trait where they have an ancestral power system.
Ancestral power system.
Cool. Tuck that under there. Next up, we will do another prompt to learn more about our commune. A background where they caused the destruction of a location. An agenda to find a lost or missing leader. A trait where they are the thieves of names, words, or identities. Or a trait where they're socially stigmatized.
I like them finding a lost or missing leader, taking this a little bit metaphorically. So rather than a actual person they're expecting to find connected to the ancestry stuff, I think they're trying to find a leader, evidence of a leader, artifacts or powers of a leader from long ago related to their beliefs or the purpose behind their commune.
Cool. Do you want to draw a figure card to figure out who the leader is, or or is that good enough because we kind of know that this is meant to be more of a nebulous search?
I think that's good enough. I want to see if we can make a monster of some kind real quick because we have the mesas where monsters dwell, but we don't have any monsters yet.
Okay, so I'm going to pause the faction, and I think that's a good start there. We'll dig into a creature here. And something I'm going to do, because it's something we don't get to play with very often, if I can find it. Yes.
Because that's another thing I'll do on occasion. When I'm sitting down with the deck, I will ask myself, which expansion haven't I used before?
Yeah.
And then I'll make sure to play around with that one.
Okay, so let's do... this is the Namesakes expansion. It's an interesting one to pull up for a speed round because it moves a little bit slower, but I think it moves very deeply. Yes. This is based entirely around the first prompts you do are just giving it a name that is meant to be evocative and interesting. So we are going to have the something hornet, and we'll get the rest of that nickname by pulling a location or a material card. the something goat, the something golem, or the something prowler?
Do we have time for another vote?
I think we've got time for a vote. So
Okay.
go ahead and vote, please, for prowler,
Or
hornet,
hornet.
prowler, or
Those
hornet.
are the two that I'm thinking, is prowler or hornet.
Amazing. Count us down, please.
All right. 3, 2, 1, go.
And while we're voting here, suggestion from Mystic to connect the leader and the mysterious signal together. I think there's something
That's what
there
I
for
was
sure.
thinking, was maybe something along those lines, as they were trying to find the leader, and this is how this either kicked off it, or they think the signal is going to summon the leader, something like that. Looks like prowler.
The prowler won it. Okay, so we're going to pull 2 location cards here and pick a prompt for what the prowler is prowling. So this is kind of the nickname for it. And also, I love that we got the write-in candidate of Golem. Awesome. Okay, so for the location of the prowler, the archive prowler, the cataract prowler, the colossus prowler, the resort prowler, the lab prowler, the shipyard prowler, the terrace prowler, or the sea prowler.
I was hoping we would have something related to the ships, but I don't think shipyard quite works. And something else I'll do on occasion is if I get... So I like sea, but I like sea specifically because there's an extra word that is popping into my head, which is dead. So the Dead Sea Prowler is
Right.
what's coming to mind for me.
Yeah. And there's a couple notes in the guidebook for this expansion, but you can basically mush the words around to work the way that you want to, and or just use this thing as a starting point of inspiration. So like if instead of if shipyard was just getting you to the idea of the ships and you were going to name the prowler after the ships, you can make that jump. But I like the idea of the Dead Sea Prowler or the Dead Prowler or something like that too. Like I think all of that works. Love it. Okay. Let's give our prowler a little bit of some properties here. A background where it is the guardian or they are the guardians of a location. A trait where they spit acid or squirt ink. A trait where they are amphibious or aquatic. Or a trait where they have detachable limbs or tail.
Detachable limbs.
And now that we're creating a monster, we are now also kind of creating mechanics by implication if we're doing lit RPG. Are you, when you're thinking about creature design specifically for lit RPG, is there anything different going on in your brain that you're aware of that you want to articulate?
And this is where I'm feeling a little bad. I don't know if I'm the best person to ask those questions, because even through all of this, I could do any of this as a straight up story, straight up novel, or try and build in the lit RPG stuff. Because to me, lit RPG is a framework to change the interactions with things, rather than necessarily a fundamental part of like why I'm telling the story. But when I'm doing lit RPG or tabletop RPG and I'm doing creature creation, I will sometimes lean into different parts of the system I have in mind to be like, hey, I want to do a creature that plays with this part of the system. So if I was doing 5th edition D&D, one third-party supplement that I really like is from Matt Koval, DM. He has the Flee Mortals thing, which is where he changes how he approaches monsters. One of the things in there there's minion rules and leader rules and stuff like that. That's probably where I would go with these prowlers, is make them kind of apex predators, or at the very least apex creatures. And part of the mechanic they have going on here is with the detachable limbs, is those are their minions. So if you were engaged with them in combat, you could be cutting limbs off, and that would, like, you would be damaging them, but you would also be spawning minions. Or if they're getting overwhelmed, there's too many of you, it might detach parts of itself to give itself minions to help it deal with whatever threat it is facing. So that's kind of what I would do, is I would try and find a part of the system I really like and then connect that to the location, to a person or to a creature.
Yeah, and that works for like a cinematic fight in a novel. That works for a D&D session. That works for a lit RPG storyline where, whether or not they go in with awareness of the creature's properties or not totally changes how the fight gets approached. Or them having to improvise mid-combat as the boss fight
Yes.
secret starts out. That's really cool. Love that. Really, really cool. All right, let's do one more for the Sea Prowler, and then we can check in on where we would start the story here. A background where it is hunted as a rite of passage by a faction. A trait where it's lethal to consume unless properly prepared. A trait where it has its body shape or feature resembles an object, or a trait where it has extra limbs or appendages.
So the extra limbs or appendages is so obvious. I already kind of had that in mind.
Yeah.
So at this point, if I was doing it on my own, I would either be like, okay, I'm just going to cement this in here, or I would say that's already in my mind. I'm going to add something new, and I am going to try and give something to RW a little bit and say that its body shape or features resemble an object.
Do you have an object in mind already, or do you want a prompt for that?
Yes, because they wanted a golem, so I'm thinking that maybe they relate to some kind of machinery or something related to the ships.
Okay, yeah, very cool. Very cool. Love it.
So it's a creature. We also had like we had new biosynthetic organisms or something like that. This is starting to blend all of that together, and that could be another thing where we think it's a living creature, but then as people have to deal with it, they start to realize it's more like the creatures in, say, Horizon Zero Dawn,
Right.
and that kind of thing.
Well, here we've
nice
resurrected the bioengineered species, and we're corner tucking it with starship parts, so we get to have it all, baby.
So yeah, I think they might look like ships or like transportation vessels or something like that, and that's what makes them difficult. Is they look like wreckage, and then they're not wreckage.
That would be. Can you imagine the cinematic moment when the corpse of the ship starts to like pull itself out of the cliff and come at you? I love that.
Especially, you thought you were going to a ruin to scavenge, and then like, oh crap, it's a dead sea prowler. And now the name makes a lot more sense. Even this is great.
Yeah. In fact, and what if the area of the stars is still called like if space is called the Dead Sea, and no one knows why, but people don't necessarily understand that these ships used to sail across it. I think you can put a little bow on that. That's where I like. No, that tangent is too long to tell. But I like infusing a little bit of like floppy poetry in anywhere I can, and that's one of those places where I feel like it would be nice to have a little bit of floppy poetry. But that is our time, 25 minutes, and we have a novel ready to happen here. We have our ship wreckage-based Dead Sea Prowler, which is going to be a hell of a boss fight. I'm really looking forward to seeing how the balance mechanics work out on that. This, of course, is part of the Mesa where monsters dwell, which is has old starships embedded into the rock, is the origin of this bioengineered species, and a mysterious signal has recently started up here, which could be connected to our commune that has an ancestral power system, and that is trying to find evidence of a leader from the past, or perhaps some kind of artifact or object that would indicate them. And they are based on the flat, where we still find algae or other sea floor flora that is sort of baked into what I'm assuming is an ancient seabed. Super cool. That is a hell of a lot to get done in 25 minutes. And again, the sadness of the speed world building round is that you get cooking and then you don't get to sit down and eat it.
That's okay though. It's fun to just do this. This
was so much fun. I really appreciate you coming on. I appreciate you lending your creativity here and demonstrating your craft. Really, really cool to see the way that you pulled together the different threads, and also like caught some curveballs and found really good places to put them.
Not a problem. So good to be here.
So if people want to find you, where can they find you, and what are you working on?
The best places to find and contact me are crrowensson.com or on YouTube as The Magic Engineer. I haven't been particularly active because the thing that I have been working on is I have been co-authoring this lit RPG trilogy for the past year and a half. That has been all I have been doing. Book 1, Spawn Point, is going to be coming out in October, and we're hoping to do a fairly rapid release with books 2 and 3 after that. But yeah, best way, if you have questions and you want to talk about any of the stuff, contact page on my website. If you just want more information and to learn about magic systems and whatnot, then YouTube.
And the Magic System Blueprint is a resource that you can find on Clark's website, which is a great way to learn how to look at what is working or not working about your magic system and retool it to make it work. So fantastic resource. Do go check that out. Clark, thank you so much for joining us. This was a ton of fun. I'm really glad we got to do a creative jam. And if any of this goes anywhere into your writing, I'd love to hear about it, because I think the living Starship Ruins is too good to not do something with it. So
absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thanks a lot, and we'll see you in the next one. Alrighty, we are down to our final guest. We've actually, I think, mentioned her in two of the four segments so far, for various reasons. But especially if you've been interested or curious about solo RPG, Claire has been the person that I've gone to multiple times to get advice on them. And we may have a chance, or we may talk about actually building the speed round, building a setting that we do solo RPG in, because there are things you'd want to consider when creating like a fertile ground for storytelling for yourself. This is not something I asked Claire in advance, so this is me springing onto Claire that, hey, we might try to do some speed world building specifically to if we were going to use this space for solo RPG exploration. Speaking of Claire, Claire C. Marshall, she is the founder and the author-publisher behind Fairy Ink Press, where she publishes young adult science fiction, fantasy, and horror novels. Her fantasy novel, The Violet Fox, was given an honorable mention in the 2016 Whistler Independent Book Awards, and its sequel, The Emerald Cloth, was nominated for Best YA Novel in the 2019 Prix Aurora Awards from the Canadian Science Fiction and Science Fiction Fantasy Association. When she's not writing or fiddling up a storm, she enjoys computer games and making silly noises at her two cats, Pinecone and Pavlova. She lives in Calgary with her husband. Please join me in welcoming Claire Marshall.
Hi.
Hey. Hello and welcome, and sorry for making you wait there. Things have gone a little over time.
That's okay. That's okay. You can hear me okay? All good?
Audio is sounding great.
Good. I've literally been sitting here in my messy office. I have like all of the like story engine, deck of worlds, lore masters deck. I have everything here open. I have my dice bowl like ready to go. I have the printed off stuff with some different like solo RPG resources. I have some PDFs open. So I'm like kind of ready. Let's hope, fingers crossed. It's also possible you're going to ask me something and I'm totally going to blank because, you know, you just have that moment where you're just like, oh my gosh, so much stuff. So, but excited to be here. I think I'm ready. I've been kind of dipping in and out of the stream. Really fun to watch everybody's mini worlds come together. So yeah, excited to be here.
It has been very fun to do these quick jams, I gotta say. I'm really enjoying it. The one hard part is I have to really suppress or choose my tangents because I have a lot of them. But before we start the clock here, let's talk a little bit about, is there a particular expansion you want to try? Do you want to stick with the main deck? The thing that we've been showing off today has been the, let me pull it up here, the free RPG Day little sampler. Uses the Lotus Fold style of packaging that our boosters use. And it's just got 35 cards that from the main deck of worlds that I really liked that I put together so that people who have been wanting to give it a try could try it, or just any folks who are looking for a little tool to spice up their tabletop RPGs could grab one from any of the participating stores in Free RPG Day. But we can use this, we can use the full main deck, we can use expansions, whatever you are feeling.
Yeah, so you know me, Peter, I really like to mix everything together. I honestly couldn't even tell you like the names of the individual expansions because as soon as I get them, they're just going in, they're being shuffled in, and I love just drawing and mixing and matching random stuff together. I as I've been dipping in and out, I've heard you've been doing like a lot of fantasy.
Fantasy's like, gotten a bit of screen time here.
Yeah, I mean, I do love fantasy, so I'd love to explore with that. I like anything coastline related because I mean from Nova Scotia originally, so any of that, I love getting that mixed in. Any horror stuff, like I've been kind of imbibing a lot of horror recently, so let's bring that in. And I don't know if this has come up, I didn't see it on the stream yet, but using any of like the pictogram kind of.
Oh yeah,
like that might be kind of interesting. So those are kind of my like first initial thoughts.
Let's do it. Okay, so then we'll do the pictogram in the bonus time. Let's start with fantasy. I'm gonna get horror on deck. Or maybe let's start with horror. We haven't started with horror yet. Okay, let's start with horror.
Yeah.
And I'm going to put sci-fi away for a sec here. Okay. Starting with horror, and let's pull open the heart of the cards. And let's go to our view here. Perfect. Okay. Starting with horror, putting 25 minutes on the clock. And picking from 3 regions here.
Ooh.
Would you like woods,
Ooh.
abyss, or barrens for the region?
Oh, wow. I mean, I feel like woods is kind of a natural choice. Just because, I mean, I grew up surrounded by woods. Abyss is interesting, but that just makes me think of the movie.
Fair,
I mean,
fair.
unless we're doing like an underwater creepy horror, I don't know if I have like all the sea knowledge to like do all of that. But woods or abyss, or like maybe like trees at the bottom of a like valley or something like that. I mean, I'm definitely feeling woods for sure.
Okay. Let's do woods.
Yeah. It's also really raining outside. So, like, really in kind of the spooky, like, chill vibe at the moment.
Okay,
Spooky, rainy woods for sure.
Let's stick with horror then for the landmark as well.
Sounds good.
Pulling a rando here. Do our woods have a chapel or a fence?
Okay. I mean, both are totally valid. That makes me think of that makes me think of the M. Night Shyamalan movie, The Village.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's really giving me that vibe. I mean, can we do both, or is that too much?
We can do both.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the woods can be fenced. Like that's just there's a natural barrier to the woods, and there's something beyond there. But I love a spooky chapel. I love a spooky religious chapel, some cult vibes.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. We've got our little culty chapel in the woods. We've got our fence, which I think I know a way to bring in our pictograph cards later.
Okay.
So let's go ahead and add a namesake card. And here I will do one from horror and then one from the sampler.
Sure.
You'll get a bonus pick here. And if you're ever undecided between 2 options, we can always throw things to the chat to vote.
Sounds
But
good.
why don't you let us know if anything here speaks to you? So we have the chapel, the woods, and the fence. And we could have the shattered woods, the shattered chapel, the shattered fence, the woods that sleep, the chapel that sleeps, the fence that sleeps, the chapel of strays, the wood of strays, the fence of strays, the chapel that screams, the wood that screams, the fence that screams, the pale chapel, the pale fence, the pale woods, the chapel of widows, the wood of widows, the fence of widows, and the fence of toads, the chapel of toads, the wood of toads.
Oh yeah, a lot of there. There's a lot there. Okay, the things that are jumping out to me are the sleeps one. I mean, you know, the woods that sleeps, chapel that sleeps. The chapel of widows is like kind of terrifying. The shattered fence seems a bit redundant. Like, why is it there? Is it broken? Or even the shattered woods. I like sleeps and I like widows. Even toads, I do kind of like chapel of toads. Yeah. It seems hilarious to me. Are we getting like kind of Redwall vibes, like a horror Redwall watership down? Like,
that's really interesting.
Yeah. So those are the 3 that are really jumping out to me.
Okay, so we could put those to the chat to vote on. So we've got, you said Chapel of Toads.
Yeah.
Was it the Chapel of Widows or the Wood of Widows?
Yeah, either. The Wood of Widows sounds kind of good.
I like it too.
That.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we have the Wood of Widows, the Chapel of Toads, or it was that sleeps. And which was the one you wanted to pair that with?
That sleeps could be any of them, or like the wood that sleeps or the chapel that sleeps. Or it could be the god that sleeps. Honestly, okay. we could say that that's the god. But that sleeps could go with any of them. Yeah. What are the people in the chat?
So go ahead. So you'll count us down for the chat voting, and chat, you can vote on that sleeps, of widows, or of toads. And go ahead and count us down, Claire. First to 3.
All right. 3, 2, 1. Vote.
I'm curious curious to see where this goes. They're all there's lots of story potential in all of them too. Like they don't just work as like vibes, but I can see a story you could pick out of those.
Yeah, absolutely. Basically, the village, but with animals. Yeah. Oh, people are saying widows.
Okay, the widows got it.
All right, so it's the chapel, or the wood of widows. Yep.
Yep.
Wood of widows, and
then if you want the chapel that sleeps, we can still put that on there.
yeah. Let's do the chapel that sleeps.
Okay.
So sleepy.
Sleepy chapel. All right. Weird little card pile. Let's do it. Let's go into our origin card then. And here's where let's bring in a little bit of fantasy to see how that plays with the horror. So we'll do an origin card. Alrighty, so we're going to find out a little bit about the past of the woods, the fence, or the chapel here. It can be the origin of an order of mages. Could have been created through rebellion. Could be the site of an infamous monster's slaying. Or it could be wrought from illusion.
Yeah, all those are kind of interesting, especially with the horror. The illusion is a little bit calling to me. I feel like the Order of Mages kind of speaks to like the cult vibes that we've kind of alluded to. So, I mean, can we say, okay. Can we say that like it's a thing because it's the chapel that sleeps, right? Or do we assign that to the woods? I can't remember.
No, we did chapel that sleeps.
And what if the chapel is only visible or tangible during a certain phase of the moon or time of year, kind of like a Halloween thing. And when it's not there, it's intangible or invisible. And like every year, kind of like on Halloween or something like that, these cult of mages or magic wielders come to this woods, and the chapel that sleeps awakens and becomes not an illusion but real. And maybe the illusion piece comes from like it's kept alive by this cult. So like if all the cult dies, it like stops existing, like it kind of exists in the mind.
Yeah. There's a term that I learned. Let's hope I didn't forget it. No, I think I remember. I think it's egregore. And it's basically the word that describes an entity that is created through belief in it. And I like the idea that the chapel is a bit of an egregore. It only exists because of the belief in it. It's powered by that collective belief. That is really cool. So yeah, wrought from illusion. I think that's awesome. The other thing is with the chapel that sleeps, I'm wondering if it's possible to visit it other times of the year, but only through dreaming or only through specific dream rituals. Could be a fun little way where like that's how they caretake it in the years between or the time between its appearances.
Love that.
Oh, I love that. Okay, fun. We have got our origin down. And checking our time here, we had 17 minutes left, so we're doing great for time. So let's go ahead and do an attribute card. Do you want to do horror, or do you want to do fantasy, or do you want to do coastlines? Because you mentioned you like coastal as well.
Yeah. Should we do coastline?
We can do coastline. We can put these woods at the edge of the
That's why the fence is there. It's to like prevent flooding and stuff. It's like a sandbag fence.
All right, keep the ocean out. The first one that came out was a tourist trap. Interesting for the chapel, right?
Could be.
Floating or stilted construction. Frequent hurricanes or habitat of a sea monster.
Oh, okay. Well, my first thought about the hurricanes is like maybe that's good for like maybe that's why the cult of mages like is purely environmental. Like they wanted the chapel to withstand the test of time, so we're just like, hey, it's only going to be tangible for like one day of the year. Maybe there won't be hurricanes on that day, and it'll like stand up. So that's like my first thought on that. Habitat of a sea monster. I mean, we're kind of in the woods, so unless the sea monster is amphibious, don't know. Tourist trap is interesting. like, are these, I guess what is, we can, maybe if we have time, we can explore what this faction is. Are they trying to attract people? Are they trying to keep people away? Are they trying to bring people to the chapel? And if there is if we want more people to believe in the god or the chapel, to like keep it more alive or make it more great, is that good? Do we want people to come here? And then what is floating or stilted construction? I mean, it's only visible for like one day of the year. I don't know. Should we put that to the chat, or do you have any ideas on that?
We can put it in the chat. I also think this one sounds like a pickle shelf to me.
Yeah.
Because I think all of these are workable, but they're all like half there. So if we want to, I think we can bring this in later and attach it to other elements to know better.
Agreed. Great.
So we'll put it on the pickle shelf. For those who did not see that stream, Claire joined us for a really, really good detailed stream on how to use solo RPGs for writing inspiration, like what they can offer you there, and then how to kind of walk yourself through some solo RPG storytelling. And Claire came up with this concept of putting cards to the side to let them kind of mature a little bit more, see if they like gain new flavors or interest. And we've called that the pickle shelf. So this is our little pickle shelf over here. We might come back to that later and use it later. In the meantime, it's gaining flavor. We're dilling it up.
Yeah, it's good.
Okay. So then I'll try one from, let's do another fantasy then.
Yay.
Okay. Are the people here renowned wand makers, known for cider or beer, known for healing springs, or disguised by illusory projection?
I mean, totally. I think the healing springs is interesting, because if you have a place that is only tangible for like one day a year, maybe just like bringing back the tourist trap kind of thing. Do we have a god that wakes for 24 hours in this specific place? And then you have a line of people like who are, have incurable diseases, and like, hey, we only got 24 hours to like cure as many people as possible or help as many people as possible using maybe a natural spring in the woods that this chapel is built around. But to bring like in the horror element, I don't know, maybe it's like what's it called? Like the curing comes with a consequence, or maybe there's some kind of like dark kind of thing surrounding it, or like you're only cured for as long as like the temple stands. Or as long as people are believing in it, and when you stop believing it, you're stop cured. Something like that would be really cool.
That is really interesting.
Yeah.
So let's definitely do healing springs.
Okay.
The idea that like now you're kind of invested in the success of the cult.
Yeah.
It's really interesting, right? Because it's almost like it's healing, but there's almost a bit of blackmail behind it. Like if you stop supporting or believing in me, it could all go away. I will take my gifts with me when I go.
Yeah.
That's interesting. And I'm going to quickly check something here because, is it it was of toads was here.
Yes.
I noticed a comment here from, how much of your time am I going to use up with this tangent? All right, I think I can get this done in 90 seconds. I'm going to do a quick tangent here. Wyvern brought up the fence of toads again. I keep thinking about those toads. Wyvern said he would have voted toads, but he designed an RPG Swamp of Toads earlier this week from that very card, which if this is true, I want to hear more about this, so please feel free to put more in the chat about that. James mentioned with the fence of toads be a line of toads that moves around and can't be crossed, but toads, people want toads. We got lots of pitches for toads.
I'm kind of here. I'm kind of here for toads as well. Like, yeah.
So I think when we corner tuck it, it could be the fence of toads, it could be the wood of toads, but the toads is now up. It's part of it. Widows is still there. We can still use that. But I want to bring toads in. I am getting really attached to the idea that these are like frog and toad people, and we do have a red wall thing going on. I do think it works with everything we've had so far. And especially the like a healing pool when you have absorbent skin feels different, right? When you're like an absorbent skin species would be really cool. So I think I think I would like to resurrect the toads here, bring them back in.
Totally agree with that. And
Totally agree.
People totally agree. Yes, that's right. And whoever suggested the fence of toads that is literally toads, like in a line, that makes me think: do toads like leapfrog? I don't know if they do, but it would be funny. And this makes me think of like Snowpiercer, the movie, and spoilers, sort of like using the children as working parts in the machine. Like, do we have supporters of the cult who are like literally sent to work at the fence, and they're just like walking the perimeter or leapfrogging over the perimeter, and like that's part of like keeping the area protected? Maybe.
Yeah, very cool. Well, then let's do Fence of Toads. Let's bring that imagery in. All that's part of our available material to work with here. We'll do the Advent, and I'm gonna actually get you to count down the chat to vote on. Do you want our story hook here, chat, to be horror or fantasy based? So you can vote for horror or fantasy, and Claire, you can count us down.
Okay, countdown incoming. Countdown 3, 2, 1. Vote horror fantasy.
And as those votes come in, taking stock here, specifically if you're thinking about solo RPG, where are you interested in starting a story, and what would you want to think about if you're thinking about the elements that you'd need to tell a story in solo RPG here?
Yeah. Well, if I'm thinking specifically about like this setting that we're creating, I like kind of exploring the first thing that comes to mind, and then kind of going down that path and seeing like, is this the best path? So if I were designing like a solo RPG, story in this setting, I'm kind of interested coming in as a newcomer, like maybe as a tourist coming in, hearing about these healing springs and being like, I have some kind of incurable disease. I have some kind of ticking clock personally. And I may or may not, if I'm thinking of this as like a novel structure, that might be something I wouldn't reveal to the audience like right away. In solo RPG, I would just know it and be playing it. But maybe I need to get a cure to this incurable disease, and I'm here for that. Maybe a more interesting hook would be I am part of this circle of magus that is maintaining the healing springs, and maybe there's kind of a unreliable narrator thing going on where like I am one of the villains, or I'm or maybe even I'm like questioning my beliefs in the god, and at what point does like belief and doubt, like does the god know when you stop believing in them, and therefore you lose like your powers and abilities, or can you like fake it to an extent? So like that's kind of my thinking around like the story hook, and I would want to start it like in media res, like for sure. Whatever that might be in this context.
How many days out from the appearance of the chapel that sleeps would you think that would be?
Oh, I think it would have to be like I think it would have to take place within 24 hours. Like I think we want to maximize that time. So I think it would probably start the minute it appears, or we're starting in the ritual where it like appears. So whether if I'm a tourist, then maybe I'm watching it appear, and that kickstarts my belief. If I'm one of the cultists, then I am like doing the ritual and it appears.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. I love that. That is a really rich ground to draw conflict and motivation from. And we've heard back that Swamp of Toads is real as a fantasy setting, work in progress currently. But let us know how Swamp of Toads comes together. So I'd love to hear more about that. In the meantime, we have our Fence of Toads, and we have our Toad Frog People Chapel, and we need a conflict, and horror won the vote. So, pulling a horror prompt here. A past tragedy is starting to bleed through to the present. This could be a murder, a massacre, or a war. or a creature has claimed this area as a lair. It could be a suspected cryptid, a giant predator, or an animal swarm.
That is the creature is hilarious to me. Like you roll up to your sacred area and there's just like a giant spider taking a nap where the chapel's supposed to appear, and it just like explodes as the chapel comes into being. That's just hilarious to me in a very sick way. I do like the past tragedy that is starting to bleed into the present. I think that's the richest vein without making it a comedy. So what would be even the tragedy? Murder, massacre.
We've got our Wood of Widows. So at some point, a lot of people died.
Yes. A lot of people's partners died in the woods, and maybe there's something to that with the tragedy. Like maybe that's sort of part of the consequence is like you get to live, but like someone you love has to die. There's a word for that. It's not monkey's paw, is it? Like a
monkey paw fits with that for sure.
Yeah. I think
the cursed wish. Yeah.
Yes. I think there's something. Yeah. Definitely the past tragedy, and we have.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it in a horrible way.
There's something there. Definitely.
Okay. Awesome. Then we have got the basics of our setting. So we have 4 minutes left. What I was going to suggest for the fence was to pull out a pictograph card to figure out what material it's made from, but the fence is now made from toads. So that's no longer helpful. We could draw on some creature cards to add some other like anthropomorphic species to our frogs and toads and woodland creatures.
Yeah.
We could get to know our character. We could pull some story engine cards to just build out some character concepts for our character. We could learn more about the chapel or the cult with some faction cards. Where are you feeling you want to go?
I'm definitely feeling the faction. Like I want to know a little bit more about their history, kind of their deal and vibe. Yeah, that's sort of where I'm at.
So what I'm gonna pull a card that represents the chapel here. So that we're not doing a random draw for that, because we already kind of have a sense of what's going on there. So actually, yeah, cult. We'll just use cult.
Great.
And then we will build off that. So now we're switching to Lore Master's deck, a deck which I said I was going to explain and then didn't. So keep me honest. When this alarm goes off, I'll explain Lore Master's deck and how it's different from Story Engine Deck of Worlds. But with our 3 minutes remaining, our cult is going to gain some properties here. They could have a background where they covered up their involvement in an event, such as a past tragedy. An agenda where they want to recover an appropriated artifact. A trait where they have a taboo involving a material or a creature. A trait where they have cult vibes. Or back to the background. So what do you think?
Definitely cult vibes. I like the taboo involving a material or creature. Like, are they using like the first thing that came to my mind there? I know we would draw like a material card.
We don't have to. Like, if you got something in mind.
I don't know though. I don't know how it fits, but like if they're like skinning other toads or like skinning creatures or like something. Something's happening.
Yeah. Okay. Like a taboo around using skin would be interesting, especially because the skin is like it means a lot more if you're a amphibious species, because it's absorbent, because it is actually a membrane through which you interact with the world. That would be very interesting.
Yes. And then if you have, if you have somebody, let's say, for example, you have a toad that has come and is like, I have toad cancer. And the spring is like, great, going to cure your toad cancer. And then, they skin the toad. And then they're like, great, now we have a cure for toad cancer. I don't know if they would would they sell that? Like, how would they use that? Maybe that's getting into a totally other vibe of what we're going for. But like, there's other uses for like curing the disease. Anyway.
Yeah.
Continue.
Okay. Well, I do like the idea of, the fact that we ended up in this stream saying the words toad cancer is, truly, when you use random prompts, you end up going some wild places. But let's, I think that the taboo involving the skins makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And I think them having a lot of healing properties, so there's a reason why you'd want them, would be interesting too. Especially if like any toad that goes into the healing springs like gains those properties or something.
Yeah.
So now that there's also kind of a target on their back, that would be very interesting. All right, we've got a sliver of time for one more prompt about our cult. Background: they're co-founded by friends or rivals.
Ooh.
An agenda: to prevent a tragedy from reoccurring. A trait where they're lovers of food and drink, which is very Redwall. A trait where they have strong mental health supports.
Aw, they're very supportive of their mental health. I mean, I do kind of like co-founded by friends or rivals, and I do like the strong mental health supports. Let's
call
do
it a
both.
corner tech?
Yeah.
All right. And I think I mentioned it but never actually explained it. Oh, that's our time. Corner tuck is when you like two prompts and they appear at a corner. You can tuck them and use both of them. Okay, cool. So we've finished our world building period here, but I would love to know a little bit about, where do you think the story is going to go? We've established, and I really like the idea that whether this is a book or whether this is a solo RPG session, our character is in the cult or is directly involved in the appearance. I love the idea of starting at right. In fact, if you were going to do like one of those capsule solo RPGs where it's very premise based, it's starting as soon as the chapel appears. Like, and every time you play through, it starts the minute the chapel appears. Is like an interesting ticking clock for the game structure, and like time being a currency you spend could be really interesting for framing decisions.
Yeah.
But where do you think you'd go from here, especially now that we know a little bit more about our cult?
Oh gosh. Definitely start the minute the chapel appears. I would really want to spend time. Two things. If my character is a newcomer, or it could even be that my character has an incurable disease, maybe does or doesn't work for the cult, but is there to like investigate, has kind of a dual purpose and wants to get to the bottom of it before the chapel disappears again. I'm really interested in the past tragedy. Like, I think that's a really rich vein, and there's something that I would explore deeper and would want to come up with the backstory for. I see this as like a novella personally. And I would probably solo RPG like the backstory, or like use Mythic has a mystery framework, so I would probably use that to kind of create the mystery behind it. I also really liked the taboo with the skin, and figure out how that connects to the tragedy, and maybe spend a little time. If I were playing this as a game, I would want to see some interaction between the co-founders, if they're there. Are they best friends? Are they rivals? Like, try to get some of that tension in there and like investigate that. Those are the kind of areas I would go to first.
Yeah. And I think if the tragedy were somehow tied to the founding story, I think that would be a really interesting way to connect those.
Yeah.
And I'd love to see where the story goes from there. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to build us a little solo RPG bubble of a world that we could explore. I love the ticking clock aspect on this one. I think that no matter what format you tell the story in, that's going to be so interesting for like how the character makes their choice when the deadline is. This one I can actually take a picture of because I don't have to clear it for the next person. So this one we'll get a photo of for later. And if anything comes from any of these seeds or ideas, let us know, because we always love to celebrate when a little creative prompt goes on to take on a permanent life in whatever structure. But yeah, thank you very much. For all the folks here who have been learning from you about solo RPGs and about writing, where can folks find you, and what are you working on?
Yeah, so you can find me at fairyinkpress.com, FAERYINKPRESS.com. A couple of different things. So if you are in the Alberta area, I am in Banff every Wednesday, nearabouts, doing it at the Banff Farmers Market. I am also going to be doing the Calgary Stampede. I will be an indoor vendor there. So if you're planning to go to the Stampede, you can come stop by and say hello to me. I have been working on a couple things. I did just release the final book in my Sparkstone saga, which is a young adult sci-fi series. It's called Voices in Our Songs. So that's available You can go buy it from me, or you can order it into your bookstore, etc., etc. But my newest, cutest thing that I am doing is I make and sell tiny books.
Oh, what?
They're tiny books. You can actually read them.
That's really cute.
They're really cute. Ever since I went to Japan a couple of years ago, I've been obsessed with like vending machines and being like, okay, how do I get a vending machine on my table, and how can I put something in it that would be cute and desirable? Anyway, I ended up getting a little vending machine from Artvend, and started making these tiny books. And actually, the books in the machine right now, they're like 800 to 1,000 word short stories, and I developed all of them with like the Story Engine Deck of Worlds, Lore Master decks. Literally sat there, developed them all. They're all called like the Time Queen. It's like the adventures of the Time Queen, and she's this young woman from an alternate 14th century Brittany, and she just goes to different planets and places and has little adventures. She's looking for her future husband who is lost in time. This one is like the final one, the Rainforest Rescue. But yeah, they're available on my website, or if you happen to find me in person, I have a vending machine there and you can get a random one from the machine.
Oh, that is so cool. That is really cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, yeah, go find Claire's tiny books as well as regular sized ones at fairyandpress.com. I hope to see the machine in person at a convention one day. I think that'd be super cool.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for joining us. I'm probably going to send you an email after this about doing a little feature on your tiny books. I think they'd be very cool to talk about in the newsletter.
Yes.
I love breaking storytelling formats, and this is a really cool way to break it and subvert expectations. So expect an email from me, if not today, then shortly. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. Super fun.
And I think what I'll do, we're saying goodbye to the chat momentarily here, so I'll just keep you on stage. If you want to do the little send off here, and I will answer that question from the chat. Hold on. Here we go. Mystic asked about the difference between Lore Master's deck, Deck of Worlds, and Story Engine deck. There it is. Is a Lore Master's deck a combination of the story and world decks, or is it just used for creating history? I'm a GM, so I don't know what would be best for me. So I'm going to answer the first question, and then I'll tell you a little bit about how to find out what's best for you in the deck system. So Lore Master's deck is independent from Deck of Worlds and Story Engine deck. Each deck does its own thing. It does kind of do a bit of what both of those ones do, but it does it really differently. So let's talk about them one at a time. Story Engine deck is really for doing character-powered storytelling. That's where it really, really thrives. You're going to have a character who has a motivation. It's going to be tied to an obstacle they have to overcome. It's going to be tied to elements of your world and story. And it's really, really good for coming up with story concepts that are based around a character and their motivation. That's where it absolutely shines. None of the other decks do that in nearly the same capacity. It can also be a bit of a multi-tool. You can create locations with it. You can create objects of interest with it. But that's really where it does its best work. And you can, once you learn kind of the architecture of it, you can build campaign hooks for tabletop RPGs. You can build relationship maps between characters and all kinds of things, but that's the basic function. Deck of Worlds, which you've seen a lot of today, is specifically for creating location-based settings with an arc through time. So think of Deck of Worlds as being a map of where things are next to each other. Make sure that each setting has an interesting past, present, and future, but it's very much geography-based. So you're building a setting that is localized, and you're just looking at what's going on there and how the things within that location connect. What Lore Master's deck does is different from both of those. It really maps connections in terms of the relationships between things. So you'll create your faction. And actually, I'll quickly pull up the Heart of the Cards again here. You'll create your faction. And one of these prompts, for example, the taboo involving a material or a creature, will prompt you to draw a new card and start a new lore cluster. And let's imagine that creature that the taboo involves is a feline. Well, you'll draw some cards to give it details. This feline has a long neck. It has sexual multimorphism, which means to say that the bodies of the different sexes look very different from each other. And then you'll give it a prompt where, like, it's used for wayfinding within a faction. Well, that's interesting. What faction is it used for wayfinding in? You draw a faction card. By the time you've built out your faction card here, you'll start to build what's basically a web of interconnected relationships between the factions of your world, the characters of your world, the events of your world, the locations, the objects, the materials, and the creatures. And so it's more about mapping those relationships and seeing how those different elements of lore interact. So that is what Lore Master's deck does. If you want to figure out which one is best for you, I do recommend checking out the blog that Alessia mentioned in the comments. We have one for writers specifically, and we have one for gamers. So if you're trying to figure out which one works best for you, we kind of walk you through what they do, how it applies to your craft, and how to pick. So that can hopefully narrow things down. And if you're still not sure, send us an email. We've got a contact form on the website. You can find us, and we would love to give you a custom suggestion, but we'll probably also send the blog to you because it's a good way to find out things for yourself. So that is that. One more time, free RPG Day. If you want to go support your local indie game store, this is a great day to do it. It'll also have some free things for you to check out. You can find participating stores on freerpgday.com. This is our little sampler pack we made. And you can find out more about suggestions on how to use Deck of Worlds for RPGs on our blog. We had a run of new blogs about that. And also, if you tried Deck of Worlds, the little sampler, and you like it, if you just want to try to build the things that we've been building, you can find that at storyenginedeck.com/worlds. It is a fantastic little tool. I did not ask anybody who came on the stream to say nice things about it, but a number of them did independently because it is useful. It's useful. It's very useful for that stuff. So I do hope you have a chance to check out Deck of Worlds. And that's been our stream. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Claire. Thank you to all of our guests. Please go check out their work. Everybody, you can see in the little banners as they headed off. We told you where to find their creations, and we will see you in a future stream. We don't currently have the next one scheduled. Some of you will have noticed that we've announced a new project called Dungeon Tryouts. It's a party game. You can find out more at storyenginedeck.com/dungeon tryouts. We probably will have some live streams involving that, but we don't have any dates for that specifically yet. But please do keep an eye out for more details about Dungeon Tryouts, which is launching on Kickstarter on July 15th. Can't wait to show you all. It's so different for us, but it's been such a fun and special project. And we will see you in whatever that next live stream ends up being. So thank you all, and see you in the next one. Bye.
Bye.